Hey, what's up? It's Jacob Patterson. Welcome to the Real Talk podcast. Sorry that we have taken so long to put out another episode. We did put out 4, so hopefully, and they're pretty long ones, so hopefully those 4 held you over. Anyone who's listening, I've got a few texts and stuff where people are asking, like, yo, when are you putting out the next one? We have like 7 or 8 recorded, something like that. So we'll be putting them out every week from now on. We're actually going to be doing a live podcast here pretty soon with someone from Insomniac Games and a Disney and Imagineer, which I'm pretty excited about that one too. We'll give you more details on that soon. But basically, we just had a crazy month with Trap House. It was our escape room art show, event series, all of the above, and we kind of got caught up in that. So we had to use the computer that we use for our podcast inside the escape room, so it was very difficult to do podcasts. That said, you'll be hearing more coming out from Happening in DTLA, who we partnered with, and No Proscenium and other people now that our podcast studio is back up and running. So this episode is with one of my oldest LA friends, Sarah Penna, formerly Sarah Evershed, of Awestruck, formerly of Big Frame. And it's a really incredible podcast. She basically sits in with us and tells us like how to run shit. Basically, she's pretty amazing. So we talk about like really old YouTube stories. If you're interested in the online video or online content world and how to monetize it, this is a incredible voice of wisdom. Anytime I have any sort of questions about online marketing, she's always the person I hit up. And now anytime I have any questions about how to be a corporate boss, she's one of the people that I hit up. And she is newly a mom. She has a toddler and she runs Awestruck TV. She talks a lot about being a mom in the workplace, and not only a mom in the workplace, but a mom that runs the workplace that she's in. And in my opinion, it's one of our best podcasts that we've recorded so far. I'm really excited to share it with you. So enjoy. Please, we have like 2 or 3 more weeks left to get on New and Noteworthy. So we're going to make a push for that. We've got a lot of reviews so far compared to like other new podcasts that I've seen. So please hit us with a 5-star, write us a little review. It helps a lot actually. So, please do that. And I don't know if there's anything left to say. Enjoy the podcast. We good?
Yeah, you want to kick it off?
Cool. Welcome to the Real Talk, the podcast. This is Jacob Patterson. I'm sitting here with my partner.
I'm Patrick Nissom.
And one of my longest running friends in all of Los Angeles, Sarah Penna, who I know by the name of Sarah Evershed. How's it going?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Of course.
For sure. So how was your 5th podcast that you'll be putting together this week?
You make me sound like a podcast whore. It's good. I like to talk, but I'm very excited to be here because we have such a long history and we're new friends, but I'm excited to just have a good conversation.
She pointed at me first and then Patrick second.
She did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not on video. You guys, I'm used to video.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a little jealous, so I need to get some details. Like, tell me a little bit about your guys' relationship, and I think that'll be a good segue into your, odyssey going into what you do today.
Sarah, you start.
Well, I used to work for a very popular YouTuber named Phil DeFranco. And I was doing everything for him from getting coffee and walking his dogs to doing brand deals and launching new channels for him. So throughout the course of working with him, I had gotten introduced to this guy who was a fan of Phil's, who knew Jacob, who was like, Jacob is also a fan of Phil's, and he makes these dope sneakers. And you should talk to him about getting some sneakers for Phil. So we wound up talking at that point about getting sneakers, and Jacob made these incredible sneakers for Phil. And then it turned into this whole sort of drama because Phil was supposed to promote Jacob and he didn't. And throughout all of this, I actually left working for Phil.
He did. I think he did promote me. I think it was just not in the same way that was expected. Because I recorded all the video, but I never released my behind the scenes video. So I probably had to take some of the blame there.
What were the shoes? Did it have his face on them?
He has this logo that's like a monkey wearing headphones.
Right.
Does he still have it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Wasn't there some lawsuit thing? Because he took the... He
no.
made a new one. I think that's what it was.
He made a new one.
I used his old one and his new one. Maybe that's why he couldn't release it. Because I used his old logo that he wasn't...
That's so generous of you. But anyways, the point is that we met and became fast friends. And when I left working for Phil, I decided that I was going to launch a management company, and Jacob was my very first client.
And this company was Big Frame.
It would ultimately become Big Frame, but it was called the Cloud Media.
I was her first client before her husband.
Yeah.
Her husband was her second client.
Wow.
We had just started dating. And I remember, like, I was so concerned with how people would think of me as a manager dating a talent. So when I had to go pick something up from Jacob's house for a video or something, I don't remember. But I was like, okay, Joe, like, you can't, like, pretend like you're not my boyfriend.
Wait, so was I just the way to open the door for Joe? You couldn't make him your first client? I had to be your first client so that you could manage Joe and date him so it wouldn't look bad?
You were the platonic business Ray J.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. Next question. No. But I just remember being like, Joe, you can't be my boyfriend. Like, don't try to, like, hug me or anything. Like, you have to be a client.
I like that. You right off the bat, you let them know, look, business first. Like, you fall in line. I'm an independent woman. I don't need no man.
Yeah, and then a week later, it was like, no, we're cool. We can be.
Yeah, I think I knew pretty much right off the bat. I don't think you guys did a very good job of hiding it.
Oh, no, we were terrible.
Well, Joe was also, like, trying very hard to put his arms behind his back so he wouldn't, like, touch your arm or anything.
He's so sweet.
He's a pretty cute guy.
He is.
So what happened then? Like, how many did you start picking up a bunch of clients? Were they just friends and friends of friends, or what?
Yeah, so I started just cold calling YouTubers, and because I had the credibility of Phil and now Joe also, and Jacob, but most people knew, like, Phil and Joe because they had big YouTube channels at the time. And I would just cold call YouTubers who I liked. Like, I would get their phone numbers of their friends, and then eventually I would just, like, hunt them down, basically.
Wow.
And so I did this with Daystorm Power. And so he was my third client, and I just started doing a good job for all of them, I think, and people started calling me.
So talk about the climate of YouTube back then, because it was a very, very different place than it is now.
And also give us a time frame. What year was this?
Okay, so this was 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, and the climate was, I think it's best sort of represented by the fact that I had, I think, almost every single YouTuber's cell phone numbers who were in the top 100.
Wow.
So, and that's not a bragging thing. That's just how it was. We were very close knit.
I have a new artist I'm working with named Phil, and I was trying to find his number in my phone, and I was like, I still have Phil DeFranco's phone number. I could text him and just, like, send him a picture of us together in the podcast studio right now. Mm-hmm. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was very open back then. And we used to throw massive, massive parties for people when they hit 1 million subscribers. And now I'm in this world where it's like, 1 million subscribers, like, show me 3 million and now I'm impressed. So, I mean, when the top YouTuber has over 40 million subscribers, the scale, you're just on such a different scale. And it's so global and so massive. Which is amazing. I'm not sort of mourning the loss of that, but there was something very special about, the first VidCon, which Jacob was at. We were all kind of meeting for the first time, and there were 1,000 people there.
Yeah, there was just a bunch of little awkward, like hotel bar parties where there'd be a reserved room, you'd walk in, and everyone would just be kind of shyly holding their phones up, recording themselves, and be like, hey, look, it's Toby Turner.
Right.
Everyone with their flip cams, right?
Yeah, flip cams. Yeah, it wasn't even phones at that point. Yeah, I gotta go back even further. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, it was really cool. I mean, I think we were all very young, obviously, and there was a lack of sophistication and maturity of the industry, and some of that manifested as, like, very charming and lovely and wonderful, and some of that manifested as, like, some serious challenges, and that was kind of what I set out to try and solve, some of the challenges.
So in some respects, I feel like you were one of the pioneers who really set to build out the, like, back-end infrastructure of what the business side of that world looked like. Is that an accurate portrayal?
Yeah, exactly. It was, I mean, my line to clients was always, let me take on all of the nitty-gritty business details and turn your YouTube channel into a business and you focus on creative.
And other nitty-gritty details too. Like she wrote a paper for me one time because I couldn't
That's
get
true.
done
For
with
college?
Yeah, I couldn't get done with both the project I was supposed to do for, I think it was for Brisk. I was doing like a brand deal for Brisk and my paper, and she had studied whatever the topic was that I was taking.
Oh
a
no,
class in.
I hadn't studied it. I just did. I did research.
That's what she told you. So
got
you
it.
Yeah, I
could
was like,
focus on
oh,
your job.
Etruscan pottery. I minored in that. Sure, I got.
She studied writing.
She'll walk your dog. She'll do your college papers. She'll get your coffee. This was Sarah Penna, what, like 10 years ago almost? No,
it was like 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
6 years
How
ago.
far you've come. So out of curiosity, I know through doing a little research, obviously, your partner at Big Frame, you met him on the Digitour. Is that correct? Which was kind of like the tour of YouTubers.
So kind of, but not really.
Okay.
So basically, I had started the Digitour with 2 other people, and through that, there was a gentleman who was the co-founder of Uprocks, and they wanted to do a blog post about Digitour. So we got to talking, and he was like, "Who are you? Like, you are this like weird girl." I think I took the call from Salt Lake. He was just like, "I need to meet you. What are you doing?" So he came out to LA, and we sat down, and he's like, "Look, you need a business operator. You're a creative. I'm a creative. Like, you need someone who, yes, while you understand business, on the level of like going out and raising money, you don't. Like, you're a literature major. You need an MBA in here." And he was like, "I know somebody who's at Comcast right now. He's looking for his new thing. Let me introduce you." So that wound up being my co-founder, Steve Raymond.
And what was his position at Comcast?
He was working on one of their property. I honestly can't remember.
I was curious, yeah.
He was working in like the digital media startup kind of investing space, and he had done some startups in the past, one called Flux, and he was sort of looking for a new startup to join. And so technically through the Digitour, but it was very roundabout way.
You were still the Cloud Media at that point, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And didn't you actually pitch the Digitour to John, the owner of Think Tank Productions? I remember there was a meeting at some point with you and a couple other people. They might have been the other Digitour people.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah?
Yeah, we were trying to do a reality show.
Based on
That would have been
starting the
interesting.
Digitour?
Yeah.
That would have been, but online would have been where it was hosted?
No, we wanted it for TV. And we had this young drummer named Ricky Ficarelli.
I remember that. Yeah.
We wanted to do a whole thing around him.
Does he still do YouTube shit?
He does. He actually just came out with a video telling everyone that he actually has cancer.
Whoa.
But he
Like
got
some Charles Trippy
surgery.
shit.
Yeah, he got surgery, and like things are looking like very good, but pretty heavy. So
Damn, that keeps happening to big YouTubers. That's crazy.
it's, man, we just lost our first big YouTuber this year, and obviously a horrific
On
tragedy.
another tour.
Yeah, she was on the Digitour as well.
What was her name again?
Christina Grimmie.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. And I heard VidCon, they were like battening down the hatches because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we talk about sort of the beginning and where we are now, I think there is a loss of innocence. That moment, I think, is going to be definitive in our space of one of our people got shot and killed. And it's not just sort of a microcosm of what's happening in our country, but it really is the loss of innocence of this space where we're so open with our fans and, we're so available to them. And we share everything with them. And, it's a very big through line for VidCon this year was people were talent was being shuttled between places in tinted out Suburbans. And
Damn.
it's different than like hanging out at the hotel bar and having access to these people. So,
Yeah. And it's a bizarre, it was a bizarre development of a community that I'm not sure a lot of people anticipated would surface. Like I think YouTube really, from my understanding, kind of really came into people's space in 2007-ish. And I recall even looking at YouTube being like, I don't really understand what this is for. Like, I can't find movies I want on here. I can't find TV shows I want on here. There's a lot of like teenagers talking about their problems. And like, I'm a teenager and I have enough teenagers around me who talk about their problems. And so I just kind of bailed on it.
Right.
And now you're looking at people who've...
Did you have a blog though?
I did have a blog. Well, I had a live journal.
Why not have?
Live journal.
It was
nice.
dope. No, it was dope. I wasn't like, oh, my life's so hard. It was
What were
like
you talking about?
I typed. I think there was a year's span, maybe year and a half span, where I either never actually typed on my computer. I would either scan like ripped out pages that I would write on, or like cut out and glue images because I hadn't understand Photoshop yet. And it was cool. It was actually that was my peak, and then I just went downhill from there. And now
You could have done that in video format though, and that's what it was. Like take your live journal and show the camera.
Absolutely. And that's what I think people began to see as these creators came in and really started playing with the format. And
Sorry to interrupt. Did you have a live journal, Sarah?
I didn't.
Did you have a blog of any
No.
kind before you turned into it? Are you just saying this because you have to keep
really
it all buried?
No. Oh, I would tell you. I would tell you. I didn't. I was not a creator. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker.
That's still a creator.
I know, but I'm not.
Did you make any like short form doc content that you were producing? Or like
I made 7 what we call pods for Current, which were their short documentaries. So I made 7 of those.
Okay, cool. We'll get back to
Current
TV as I interrupted Patrick.
Well, I think it's interesting because if you look at the history of folks creating content, it was very, very, very rarely a camera at themselves. And if it was like an artist being experimental, and even like 1/3 of the time it was actually well received or by an artist with their weight. And I'm talking about video content here. And so all of a sudden you create a network of people who turn on their cameras, sigh, and talk about their day, or they turn on their cameras and they're like, hey guys, which is like probably like if there was a flag of like the YouTube community, that would be like the saying, like in quotation marks.
There was like a super cut that was going around video of all YouTubers saying, hey guys. It just gets to like manic levels. It's pretty.
We're going to have to post that supercuts. That's another thing YouTube invented.
Yeah.
True.
I think to your point, like it suddenly becomes this like seismic shift in how people are creating content. And I think that's why the media industry was so blindsided by it. Because if you take it at face value, it's kids in their basements talking to their cameras about their days, right? But if you go beneath the surface of what's really happening, it's those awkward people at the hotel bar desperate for connection that they're not getting and is not being reflected back to them, whether they're a minority or overweight or a woman or want to talk about makeup or fashion or like LGBT issues, whatever it is. Traditional media is not reflecting their realities back to them, including and especially in reality TV, which I think some would argue this is the new version of reality TV. And I would argue it's not. It's a version of it, but it's a version of it that's sort of creating these communities. And I know
it's more real.
It is. And I know that sounds like your listeners may roll their eyes at that, but it's so true. And you see it come to life in VidCon, and I see it come to life when I'm out with talent and somebody comes up to them and said, you know what? You made my day better, or you saved my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hear that a lot.
That's really powerful.
Well,
you're not going up to a 5th season housewife saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it was, but it was like an evolution more from internet forums than it was from reality TV though. Like it was like,
exactly.
It was people who had communities on internet forums. I remember the first guy, I'm really curious who the first person you subscribed to was, but I remember the first guy I subscribed to was this weird dude. There's no way I can remember his name. And he was just like this overweight, balding, like middle-aged guy with glasses that would post these really, really weird videos that were like 12 to 20 minutes long. But he had to break them into pieces because I don't think YouTube let you post videos
like
that long.
7 minutes or something. Was it Naltz?
It might have been. No, because, but Naltz was someone that he aspired to. In fact, back then, a lot of people were stealing other people's videos and like chopping it into their own shit. And he would just make these weird video blogs, and he had maybe like 200 subscribers or something, and we would just talk in his comments, and that was it. And I remember Mike Diva introduced me to YouTube for the first time ever on a MySpace bulletin. And he was like,
I love that sentence right there so much. Everything about that.
Well, I went to high school with Mike, and
was he in your top 8?
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh.
I'm having him. He's coming to the podcast next week on Thursday. We're going to go to the Guillermo del Toro exhibit, and you two need to fucking hang out. By the way,
hey, it's an open door invitation.
I might just secretly invite you, and then you just show up, and he's like, "Oh shit!
Oh my god, let's do that."
If you want to,
I'm
you
in.
could.
I'm in.
Come Thursday.
Let me consider not live on the air, but
Yeah, consider.
there should be a way where I put you guys on a blind date for sure. But anyway, because we're gonna get really stoned that day.
So sorry, back to
might not be the
2006,
best day.
MySpace, bulletins.
Yeah. So he put up a bulletin. He was like, yo, there's this new thing that people are doing where you can just upload whatever content you want. Because before then you had to figure out a way to host it on your own. Were there any places that you could host besides YouTube back then?
For free?
Yeah.
Current.
Current, really?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Current then.
Okay. So, well, early days of Current, you could upload, but your video wouldn't go live right away. There was a human on the other side that was reviewing everything and was approving what could go up on the website. And then the community would vote on, on what they liked. And the more you interacted and engaged with, the heavier your vote was weighed. And so you sort of could become this like super user influencer of Current TV, and you could sort of heavily influence what made it to air. And so then there were people, creative executives on the other end, seeing what was bubbling up and popular, and they were buying those pieces of content and then putting them on air. I mean, it was extremely complicated. So, but so amazing. And so it was really like YouTube and Current were live at the same time. And those are the only two places I can think of. I was actually working in reality TV at that time, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you done anything in reality TV since starting Big Frame and stuff?
No. Besides running Snooki and JWoww's YouTube channels, no.
Which is
How's
as
that
close
going?
to reality TV as you can get.
It's awesome. Snooki just had a viral video. Check it out.
Oh, that's right. The
Young
rap
Mommy.
one, right? What's
That
it
was
called?
us.
What's it called?
Young Mommy.
Young Mommy. That was you guys.
That was us.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
I watched a third of that video.
It's really good.
Yeah.
The retention rate is.
It's like, if you buy a full bag of drugs, there's no need to take the whole thing all at once. All right, just pace it out. you don't need all that in
Good
your
point.
life
Good
at
point.
once.
Was that video plotted out? Like, was there a strategy to get it to go viral?
Oh, we just knew that it was going to go viral.
Well, you killed the aesthetic.
Yeah.
I mean, like the green screen, it looked like a bad Young Money video.
Well, yeah, and the great thing about her, she just doesn't take herself too seriously.
That's
She was
cool.
like, I'm going to make this, like, I suck at singing. I certainly cannot rap. But I'm going to make this and like have fun with it I think my favorite line is when she starts singing about breastfeeding.
Yeah.
She's rapping about breastfeeding. I'm like,
Yeah, I think
Young
I
Mommy.
hadn't closed out before that point. I think I
Oh.
do recall that.
You should. She
Any
grabs her
other-
boobs and sings about breastfeeding. So.
Ooh, nice. We'll have to check it out. Any other crazy stories with Snooki and JWoww from running their channel?
Well, a couple weeks ago, we were all in New York to speak on a panel together. I was moderating a panel with them, and this conference decided to host on a boat, on a yacht. I'm doing air quotes for those podcast listeners. It was quite an interesting choice, and we all got extremely seasick. And Jenny took Dramamine and then drank a venti red eye. So those sort of coffee and Dramamine were counteracting each other, and we were all like extremely motion sick while on the panel. So it was supposed to be an hour, and it was like maybe 25 minutes because I was like, I gotta go. I'm literally gonna throw up on this panel.
When you give me air quotes for yacht, like was it just a tiny boat? Was it like a pontoon boat?
It was very old and like just not. It was kind of dingy.
Where was it? Was it in Jersey?
It was in New York. It was. I didn't even know that like an area like this existed in New York.
Were you on like the Hudson River?
I don't even know.
I
I couldn't leave fast enough,
Yeah.
so I sort of blocked it from my memory. It was unfortunate because it could have been cool, but it was not.
So I know we've been bouncing around
Yes,
a little bit. One thing I do want to talk about for sure is going back to kind of Big Frame. When you and your partner on that project came together to make this thing happen, how did you guys deal with having two strong, minds in the same place? Like, was there like a really clear line where you said, I had these responsibilities and you have these responsibilities? Was he invited into creative conversations? How did you kind of keep the peace when, you're in such a, emerging market that is kind of uncharted territory to begin with?
Yeah, partnerships are an extremely delicate balance, whether it's a marriage or a co-foundership, which is sort of like a marriage. And to my co-founder, Steve Raymond, to his credit, He really didn't come in and sort of say, I'm the CEO now. This is my vision, my company, good job so far, but I'm taking over. And he really could have done that, frankly, because I have evolved my leadership skills, but back then I was very new to being a leader. And
were there other people that you were considering starting the company with?
No.
That might have done that?
I really needed something to happen fast, and he walked into my office and we clicked right away, and he checked all of the boxes that I needed. So
love at first sight.
It was. And I could have done more due diligence, but I didn't need to, and it wound up being a great decision. So that was lucky. We still talk and we're still very friendly. And I have heard a lot of sort of co-founder horror stories. So I do feel very lucky. And he really has been a great supporter of me and my vision and allowed me to be the face of the company, which is very important for me. And in my current position as well. I think that it's important when you have a company that there's a personality that people can sort of be attracted to. You see this in Nasty Gal, for example, with Sophia, what's her name?
Sophia, what's her name?
Yeah, Sophia, she has such a great, she has a girl boss.
Yeah,
she wrote the book. I think it is interesting and important for companies like that to have somebody. So my point being that he really empowered me to do that and to be that person. And so, yes, our roles are very clearly defined. He was the CEO. I was the chief creative officer. I ran our talent management department and division. We both sort of strategized on vision. He raised money, handled our board, handled our P&Ls, finance, Excel spreadsheets, etc.
Cool. And do you recall any fights where you just facepalm later about either how dumb the topic was or just the conversation in general? Because I know that sometimes you're tense about something else and they're tense about something else. Then you butt heads and you look back and you're like, this was over like a pencil sharpener.
We didn't have any real big fights. And so when we did, it was significant.
Right.
And I look back and I'm like, those were very necessary steps in our evolution. So, the most striking, example that comes to my mind was, during the process of selling the company before our employees knew, we were in a meeting, an executive staff meeting. So our executive staff met once a week and to talk about updates for everyone's department and then, just talk about the business and any issues that were coming up. And our head of sales, who's an incredible human being, I adore him, but he is a salesperson and we definitely butted heads because I'm looking out for my clients. He's looking out for his bottom line. And we're both doing our jobs, but sometimes those things conflict. And he said something, I don't even remember what it was, but it set me off. And I walked out of the meeting and I swore, and said some probably not very professional things and slammed the door. And we work in an environment, which is like a bullpen. And so the whole company saw it and I walked outside. And I was pregnant also. And Steve came out and I was like, if you fucking tell me this is because I'm pregnant, I'm going to lose my shit. I was like, this is like, you have to hear me for what I'm saying, not because I'm a ball of hormones. And I was right. There was a little more edge to it than maybe it would have been if I wasn't pregnant.
Right, but you delivered the message, and the message in retrospect was still resonating.
Yes,
with you.
But looking back, was there any times when you were arguing, you were like, no, I'm going to put my foot down here, and you ultimately were wrong?
I think probably my biggest weakness is not putting my foot down enough. So I wish I could say yes, but usually I am better at this now, but back then it was I allowed people to sort of shape. If I had something that I felt very strongly about, usually it's the opposite. Like I feel very strongly about something, I don't fight hard enough for it, and in the end that winds up being correct. So
were there any ways that you had to strategize in your life to make that stop happening, where you were like, I'm going to start putting my foot down?
Yeah. For me, it's my biggest challenge in my professional. Yes. I'm much better, but I have an executive coach and she helps. Our whole work is around this particular topic and sort of sticking to my guns and knowing that my instincts tend to be very good. And the times that I've made the biggest mistakes in my career have been when I've had that instinct and gone against it.
I felt that a couple times too. What kind of strategies does she give you?
She gives me actual like sentences to say, and that helps me because it's like, okay, I can repeat something that she's saying. You know, it's almost like acting, and you're acting, and it's awkward until you're not, and it's really how you're a leader.
And you're like, holy shit, that worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you audition some of these sentences for us?
Yes, I think
Sarah. No, we shouldn't sign that client.
Jacob, I agree. Yeah, Sarah, what do you have to say about this?
No.
That's good. That's good.
Just,
you just
no.
pointed at me
just
like I was your son.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I slip into toddlerese. That's my other
Toddlerese.
Yeah, exactly. I also have a toddler coach. Just keep it simple.
Coach, yeah.
The two languages you're learning.
And a lot of pointing.
It's like blueberries or yogurt. You know, those are big decisions. No, but it's really just the whole thing is about getting to yes, right? And so you want. When you're sitting down to have a difficult conversation with somebody, for example, let's say you want, you recognize that something's not working with this person and you want to address it. So you sit down with them, you say, we're going to have a difficult conversation, but I want you to know that this is coming from a place of compassion and this is not personal. Can you agree with me on that? Yes. Then you don't move on until they say yes. Okay, great. Now we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. Are you comfortable with that? Yes. So they're constantly saying yes, and they get into this rhythm of like, okay. And then you can just, get what you need out of them.
I was just watching a movie called The 7-5 where a private detective was talking about how he got criminals to confess to crimes, and he employed the same strategy. Mm-hmm. So apparently it works.
It's like, really powerful. It's really powerful. And look, it's, again, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, they're going to see right through me that I'm just like saying a script.
Right.
And it's awkward. But the last time I did it was last week. And I felt so good coming out of that conversation because I was nervous. But I literally, before I said, I'm nervous about having this conversation. And when you open yourself up to be a little vulnerable, then the other person's like, okay, she's not coming at this as being aggressive, angry, upset. It's like, we need to handle some shit and we need to get this done. And I'm not coming at you angry or upset, but I'm coming at you because I care about our organization succeeding.
And I think that's important. And like you don't strike me as someone who I think is like stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey of just bullshit of like corporate lingo. Like you have a very genuine nature about you that I think
Thank you.
That I think resonates like with anyone, whether it's in a working environment or a personal environment. I think if anything, you've needed to get coaching on how to like acclimate yourself to this like
cutthroat
world of jargon and like cutthroat lingo that I think when those two worlds align, I think people kind of get the message because chances are they probably knew what went wrong in the first place, and you holding them accountable is not your fault. It's your job.
And they actually appreciate it. That's the crazy thing. Like when you come to somebody and you say, I want you to be better, and that's why I'm telling you this, that's such a better situation than somebody just like letting you do something wrong. Like, wouldn't you so much rather know if your boss felt like you could improve and they're going to help you get to that place? And I'll be mad at you about it.
For sure.
And even if they are seeing through you and they know exactly what you're doing, maybe it's like the fourth time you've done it to them or something. Yeah. They're still like, oh, this is a strategy for me to step my game up.
Exactly. Transparency it's very powerful when, deployed in the proper ways.
Yeah. Have you had to have these conversations? I mean, obviously you're talking in the context currently of working with Awesomeness TV, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But prior to that, when you were kind of in your own vessel, that being Big Frame, did you have to have these conversations? Obviously, you didn't have your coach then, but did you have to have similar conversations with YouTubers where you're like, look, like you narcissistic piece of shit? Like,
how do you handle that?
Oh, man.
I'm sure that's like every day.
It's so challenging because it's not like you're acting, it's bad. It's like your personality sucks.
Whoa.
But I'm being extreme. I've never had to say that. But it's like you are consistently late to things.
Exactly.
This is, for me, I actually was pretty comfortable in that because I did feel like I was helping them improve. And because my original mission was to make this industry more mature.
You
so
could
that
come
we were
across
taken
more so as like Mama YouTube.
Yes, I got called Mom a lot before I was Mom, like Mama Bear, or like even like godmother of YouTube, and like people, I had like all these mom type nicknames because it was tough love, but always from a place of compassion and wanting them to be better.
Yeah. And it was an innovative position. I mean, like there weren't any people that I can find that really had your position for that clientele. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so you were dealing with a completely, like I said before, like uncharted waters. And so you're having to tell them what to do, and they have no frame of reference of anyone else who's ever done it. And so they have two options. They have either got to put their eggs in your basket, which, you know, for most people it paid off, or did you have people go rogue? They're like, look, I already have a mom. Fuck you. I'm out of here. Or what?
Oh my God. You can't even imagine.
I'm sure. Let's get some context. So at that point, the idea of the multi-channel network and MCN was being invented.
Yeah, this is like 2010, 2011.
Right. And so there was, I believe, 5 big companies that were pulling from different places of inspiration in the entertainment industry and otherwise, because we talked about like internet forums and things like that, to decide, okay, how are we going to manage something like this and how are we going to leverage something like this? And then you entered that world and you were kind of like, this is brand new and I think that I can do this. And what were the like income streams that were available from YouTube at that time, and how have they changed? And what did you do? Because the thing I appreciated so much about you is that you were so genuine with your talent and with clients, really, because you were like, this is what my talent does, and I'm not going to make them do anything else. How did you come into that? Why did you decide this is something I'll be good at?
I think working with Phil really opened my eyes to what I like to do, like my sort of protective personality around him and my capacity to sort of fight for what he needed when I could see so clearly that he couldn't do it. Not because he doesn't have the capacity, but because it's hard to stand up for yourself no matter who you are. And it's hard to negotiate money for yourself no matter who you are. And so to sort of come in and help him with those things, it was so fulfilling for me. And so I really kind of figured that out and figured out how to sort of leverage these skills that I didn't really even know that I had to negotiate and sort of make things happen for other people. So that's really like where the kernel of it started.
What was negotiation like back then? Like what was income?
So the income was really heavily weighted on brand deals, as it still is. And, you know, AdSense, of course. And then we're starting to see some kind of appearances, little roles on movies or TV shows or commercials here and there.
And AdSense is the ads that play on videos and they would pay YouTubers. Did you have to apply for partnership back then?
Back then you did. Yeah, you had to apply for partnership, but I can't remember when they got rid of that, but it was not far after that. It was maybe 2012 or 2013 when it just opened up to anybody.
How's AdSense work now?
Because they opened it up to everyone, the pie is sort of the same size, but there's so many more people getting it. So AdSense has actually really gone down, I would say. So a lot of people don't rely on their AdSense anymore. They really rely on the brand deals and the movies. And there's so many more opportunities for content creators to do tours, movies with YouTube Red, or, you know, there's a lot of these influencer movies coming out. Awesomeness is probably the best at doing them. Definitely the best at doing them. And
what's YouTube Red?
YouTube Red is a subscription service. So it's YouTube's kind of answer to Netflix or Hulu. So you pay, you get an ad-free experience, but you also get access to movies that they are creating as original content.
Interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so with all these channels for, you know, making income and all this negotiating that needs to go down, why was it that you had people, you know, split off and say, I can't deal with you, I'm doing my own thing, or I'm going with someone else?
There are a lot of different reasons. I mean, sometimes it's just a personality conflict, and you try to kind of make it work, but, you know, it doesn't in the end. Just like dating, it is like getting broken up with, I will tell you, and it like hurts the same amount every single time.
Even if it's their fault?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to like save a YouTuber who like had talent, but they were just a loose cannon, and you're like,
There's so many YouTubers like that.
God.
And you're like, I want to save you. Like,
I think
let me give you a career.
It's so hard. The hardest thing is that when you can so clearly see a path for somebody to success.
Sure.
And they're getting in their own way. And that's a pretty common occurrence, I would say, not just with YouTubers, but with actors.
We see it all
Absolutely.
the time here at the gallery.
But you see it with artists, of course.
Yeah, I remember Jacob and I were at a panel at UCLA, and sorry, I asked everybody a question where I was like, because these are young kids. I mean, like, these are kids who are like about to graduate, like a couple of whom became our interns, did a stellar job. And I was like, everybody raise your hand if you have a friend who has tremendous potential and can do amazing things, but just is getting in their own way or are not doing the things they need to accomplish. And like tons of people raised their hand. And I was like, make sure that your friend is not raising their hands on your behalf for the same question. Mm-hmm. Like, always make sure that you're checking yourself and not just other people to say, like, am I reaching my own potential? Am I doing the things I need to accomplish? Because like, I kind of have that assessment for my own self, like every, couple of weeks. And I'm looking and I'm like, I need to be fucking faster at my emails. Like, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. And then I like make that correction. And it's not like you can make a sweeping revision to like your software all at once. Like, you fix bugs one at a time. And I think that that's something that people sometimes don't recognize. And so they go big, try to fix everything. It doesn't work. And then they just quit.
You're so spot on. I mean, it's a constant, it's a lifelong thing. And I think to be able to reflect every couple of weeks, I mean, that's really powerful. And I think you probably changed a lot of people's lives in that room, honestly, because that's true advice. I mean, really to look at yourself and look at what you could be doing and to consider, what does success look like for me? And if I do achieve that, is it going to be enough? Because I see a lot of sort of hyper successful YouTubers who are like, my goal is 1 million subscribers and then I'll be happy. And I think that's a lie. You're not going to be happy. You're going to want to keep growing. You're going to want to keep evolving and changing your content. So it's not just a number. It's not just a salary. It's not just a number of shows you do in a gallery.
Isn't that good though? Shouldn't they want to keep
They
it
should.
going?
Exactly. But my point is, if their vision of success is 1 million subscribers, they're going to be unsatisfied and disheartened when they get there and they don't feel that.
Yeah, this is the common plight with Olympic athletes, where they spend their entire like young adult lives, perhaps even as children, like, they may be a talented sprinter and they're like, they go through middle school and the middle school track team. They're like, hey, you could be on varsity year 1. Then they go in varsity and then they get a scholarship. And then throughout their entire young life, they're like, all right, I've discovered it. I've found it. It's a gold medal in the fucking Olympics. I know it. I'm going to get it. And they go and they bust their ass and they cry and they sweat and they bleed and they yearn and they get a coach and then they get another coach because their old coach isn't good enough. Then they get an endorsement deal. And then like all of this whirlwind leads them to a point where they're on the starting block for the 100-meter dash and they sprint it and they win it and they get their gold and they're 27. And then what?
Right.
They have an entire lifetime to figure out whether or not they want to win another or what the fuck else they're going to do with their life. And a lot of times, these folks end up really depressed. And if you don't have some sort of semblance of other attainable goals and a trajectory for where you might go if you do achieve this goal, you run out of life to live.
Yeah, totally. There's a line in the Jungle Book, the song that when King Louie sings, I've reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me. And for me, that always sticks in my mind when I see YouTubers hit this point.
What point is it that they hit?
It's different for everybody. I mean, I think it's a lot of times as YouTube talent, there's no seasons, there's no break, there's no crew, there's no team. It's you. And it's all reliant on you. So even when you reach the top and have to stop, it's almost more anxiety inducing because now I have to keep this position. And I'm not just talking about like the number one slot on YouTube. I'm talking about like making YouTube your full-time job and, being successful at it. And you have to constantly be innovating, but not too much, because then your audience who came for one thing are going to be pissed off that you do this other thing. And so it's this very challenging, tricky dance, and they're really doing it alone with their management, and, hopefully they have a good team around them.
And sometimes at odds with their management too, because
right.
That was one thing for me, because I stopped making YouTube videos because I was no longer creating the shit that I was having fun doing. I also started Think Tank around that time, so it was like my focus just shifted to here. But a lot of times that's what people end up doing, is they just completely drop the thing they were doing before and start something else brand new. And it's like they just keep starting new things so they can distract themselves from the fact that they weren't satisfied with the previous thing, which can be a problem too.
It can be a problem. It can be motivating. I mean, I think my husband, Joe, is a great example of somebody who is like totally comfortable in stopping and reinventing himself and doing what feels good for him. And,
but Joe keeps Mystery Guitar Man alive the whole time. And even when he separates from himself, like he's still kind of taking things that he's learned from his previous worlds and building bridges to the new things he wants to accomplish. So he never just abandons himself and starts over from scratch.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it could seem like a giant leap to go from Mystery Guitar Man to directing sci-fi, but I think you're totally right. There is a bridge, and there are sort of nods to Mystery Guitar Man in everything he does.
Well, I know you mentioned something. I think it was either a podcast or a video where you had mentioned how many job requirements need to be fulfilled to just be a successful YouTuber. Like, you've got to be able to market yourself well. You've got to be organized. You've got to be entrepreneurial. You've got to be able to essentially deal with every shade of a production company, but just downsize to one subject. Or, in a case of someone like Mike Diva, where he's producing, content that is kind of outward facing. I mean that only in the sense that the camera isn't pointed directly at him.
Right.
That's even more responsibility, because then you've got to coordinate, okay, well, who's going to rotoscope this? And, when do I get access to the light? Should I just buy my own lights? Like, what's the pros and cons of owning my own gear in this respect or that respect? And there's a lot of business decisions, marketing decisions. And so I feel like sometimes you run into a situation where a YouTuber's true business sense is going to be tested, because they may hit a plateau and they say, well, I have been doing it this way in this completely foreign, like I say foreign in the sense of no one really understood what the fuck internet content was until the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're going into this world and they've finally found something that works. They may hit 1 million subscribers, and then they're like, do I keep doing what I'm doing? Or do I like reinvent? And if I reinvent, is that scary? Is this brand suicide? And it's interesting because a lot of these people haven't gone to business school. A lot of these people haven't even gone to film school.
I don't think I know, like, Freddie Wong went to film school.
That's it.
Did Mike go to film school?
He just started making music videos for like famous bands, and that was his film school.
Yeah, like, I'm sure Joe's totally self-taught. Phil's totally self-taught.
Ironically, YouTube is almost like film school. You can get a decent film school education off of YouTube.
Completely.
Yeah, you kind of can. How do you advise someone when they are producing the kind of content Patrick's talking about, where it's like, okay, I'm making this, my audience loves this, that guy loves it too, it's something that they were having a lot of fun with. They were just producing the same kind of thing over and over, built up an audience, and they started wanting to do something else. Their audience isn't responding to it, but that's what they want to do now. Obviously their management's going to say, well, a path to success is, forking off of the path that you were already on. And they're like, no, I just want to drop it and do my own shit. Like, how do you advise a creator in that position to still make content that he's not going to have to give up his career for?
It's extremely challenging. And I think it can be done. I think Daystorm is a perfect example.
So what Daystorm do?
So Daystorm, the catalyst for his change was actually he broke his knee on a shoot. And he's an extremely active person. And he couldn't drive, or he couldn't bend his leg for 6 weeks, which is actual torture.
Yeah. So what was he doing before that, and then what did he break his leg on?
Okay, so he was doing these challenge videos where his audience would challenge him to rap about certain things, and he would do it. And they were very fun and lighthearted and very upbeat, and he didn't swear. It was very family friendly. He would rap using the alphabet, rap using movie titles, and sort of Mystery Guitar Man-esque, like they collabed a lot. They were very, so he was doing a shoot that I had set him up on, so I feel horrible, but it was for another YouTube channel, and they were playing basketball, and he just landed on it wonky and broke it. And it was a really hard time. He couldn't leave the house. I would go visit him in North Hollywood, and he started making sort of hardcore rap at that point, using the N-word and talking about women and clubbing, and his audience was like, we hate this.
Really?
And he was like, I don't care, because you know what? I want the audience that I want, and the audience that I have is not that. And
so he just shaved off a bunch of his audience and took the ones he wanted with him.
Yeah. And we were advising him to, look, you're really funny, actually, and I think comedy could be a great arena for you. And he's like, sure, yeah, and then Vine came out, and I wish I could take credit, but I really can't. He really grabbed onto that platform early and has now become a massive Vine star. He doesn't even really post to YouTube that much. A massive Vine star and a massive Facebook star, really one of the first Facebook stars.
Yeah.
True. Through these comedy videos. And so he had to go on this journey through, his really great rapping to sort of wanting a true rap career, but being held back because, as we were talking to music managers and labels, they were like, if you look at your body of work, your street cred is pretty minimal. You're a YouTube star rapping with the ABCs.
Sure.
And while his street cred is legit, he grew up in a rough neighborhood of Baltimore, it's not reflected in his body of work. So he had to go on that journey to really find his voice. And now he has an extremely successful career on, Vine and Facebook. And I think he's really the best example of somebody totally transforming.
Yeah.
He literally had to break himself and then remake himself.
Literally.
In a sense. Yeah. And he almost had the luxury.
Patrick tried to rap just now.
I did. Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It's better than I could do.
We'll have it for
Young Mommy and you need to do a collab.
Yeah. Young Mommy for sure. Mammary glands all day. That's the name of my mixtape. Comes out never.
So when Vine came out, though, I remember there were so many people who were like, the platform completely changed online content producers and what they were capable of, because they, all these comedians were having to basically make the tweet versions of their normal videos.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
Funny enough to
try to be funny in 6 seconds.
It's crazy.
It's incredible though.
These fools pull it off. Daystorm was amazing at it, and he made the other sign of a very talented person is that he brings a squad with him, because he made so many other people famous.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There was those videos where they were trying to save their sneakers from falling in the pool, and they're just throwing it off frame over and over and over again, and it was just hilarious. And then all those people became famous. Everyone who caught the sneaker, it sounded like.
Vine, I think the interesting thing about Vine, and it's funny because I came up through film school, and so trying to make a short film is really fucking hard. A really good short film, because you have to truncate so much of what the story really is in your head into such a compact format. And so when you it's 15 seconds, right? That's fine. No, or is it less?
Five
it's
and a
6
half.
or 5 and a half.
5.8 they tested.
Yeah, 5 or 6, give or take. And that to me is really a definitive mark of comedic, succinct brilliance, because if you're able to get famous from it, you've clearly mastered that, not only the short attention span of what appears to be a exponentially growing demographic, but you've been able to restructure in your mind a punchline without an elaborate setup. You have to get the setup done and then Act 2 done and Act 3 done, all within a matter of like 2 seconds.
It's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard.
So hats off to him. I mean,
Yeah.
have you ever seen any YouTubers go like John Lennon leave the Beatles to Yoko's status, where like they bail on their brilliant project to do something just totally shipwreck worthy?
I've seen, there's one really, really epic sort of flame out story, and I'm happy to share it because fuck that guy.
Which is,
well, I'm kind of scared of him, so hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, if you want to talk some shit, come to see Jacob and I sell first, and then we'll let you talk to Sarah. There you go.
podcast at 939 Maple. Go ahead.
His name is Deshaun Raw, and he did this epic video rap battle, which I'm sure you've seen. It's used in like a ton of memes.
Everyone makes into a gif where he says some line that's not that hot, and then the whole crowd goes, "Oh!" and then
That's
the guy
him?
runs by
That's
like
him.
this.
Oh, where?
Super hot fire.
But
Yeah.
that video's kind of dope, though. Okay.
Oh, it's one of my favorite videos of all time, and that's why I signed him.
So what happened?
So similar to what you were talking about, Daystorm and his like squad, he had like this squad, and we're like, we are going to like invest in you guys and make you this like amazing comedy squad and like blow this thing up and make it huge. And he went off without us and did a deal at Comedy Central with Chris Rock. And
You were trying to do some like Odd Future Wolfgang shit.
exactly. And they totally had the talent for this. I mean, completely. These kids were so talented. And anyways, we gave them a ton of equipment and like we're funding their whole shebang. And I mean, you know,
How was that not a breach of contract?
oh, I mean,
It
just
was.
wait.
Okay.
Because
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
breach of contract is sort of the least of our problems in this story.
I like this.
So he has sort of, we don't really know what happened, but he had an epic meltdown and started texting all of this horrible, crazy shit to Chris Rock. And Chris Rock was just like, what is happening, man? Like, I'm just trying to, they had shot the pilot of this show. And Deshaun Raw was screenshotting his texts with Chris Rock and posting them on Instagram in a very public meltdown.
Oh my God.
I get a call from him and he is like, I had 103-degree fever and he was just talking nonsense. He's like, why are you crying? And he was swearing at me and calling me horrible, horrible names.
Not
and
Chris
like,
Rock.
No, not Chris Rock, Deshaun Raw.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was at South by Southwest. I was like, I'm on my deathbed. I'm at South by Southwest. Like, what is happening? He's like, you need to get me a collaboration with some rapper. I was like, I don't even know who that is. And he was like, stop crying. It's like, I'm not crying.
Who was the rapper?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. I was so sick. I honestly like.
Yeah.
I had to put it on speaker so Joe could hear it and help me respond because I was so sick. I was on my way to the ER actually.
Jesus.
Yeah. Damn. So I was like, what? I can't even deal with this right now. Come back. Like, I'm feeling better. I go to his YouTube channel. He's deleted his YouTube channel.
No. Yeah. Wait, so for those like me who don't understand the implications of doing such a thing, do you lose all your subscribers like forever or can you reactivate?
He had deleted in such a way where his subscribers were still there, but all his videos were gone.
Okay.
And I had access to his back end and they were deleted, not privated. Like they were gone.
Wow.
Do you know why he did all this?
No, he was
still don't
literally.
know?
And so I was like, all right, dude, like you need to come to the office. You need to bring all of the equipment back and we're just going to part ways. It's like whatever's going on. He like rolls into our office with this huge, scary crew. I was like, I'm going to die today. This
like
is
when
so
O.J. Simpson went to go steal all its collectibles
Yes,
back?
this is what it was like. And I was just like, I mean, you guys on the podcast can probably tell I'm like a tiny little white girl. Like, I was like, what is happening? And they were like, your equipment's gone. We sold it to get JP out of jail. And I was like, awesome.
Yo, did they...
It was
They
like,
have
Why didn't they just-
selfie sticks and like a bunch of flip cams recording this so
I
they
wish.
can make a video of it?
And they like got in a fight outside of our office. And
With
then,
each other?
Yes.
Oh man.
And I was like, this is such a disaster. I was like, it was like seriously $6,000 worth of equipment. And I was like,
God.
whatever, just leave. Like, I just never want to hear from you again. Just go walk out the
severance
stores.
package. Get the fuck out.
We are done. Like okay, JP is like here. So he clearly got him out of jail. I believe this story. So that was the epic meltdown of the century.
Has he done anything since?
Yeah.
No.
Damn.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't think
I'm sure
so.
word spread quickly.
And it's such a tragedy. He was truly talented. He was so funny. So I'm sad
great.
about that.
He came here a couple times.
Did he?
Yeah, Mike was shooting videos here.
Yeah.
So speaking of meltdowns, there's something very exciting I want to get to, which is you selling your company and then going on maternity leave and all of the struggles that came with that, because it all happened at the same time. You were becoming a mom for the first time. You were selling your company before turning 30, and it was just like all this madness. So
Yes.
You sold it before you were 30?
15 days before I was 30.
Still counts.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's awesome.
Backstory, you were working for Phil. You started Cloud Media, took on myself, Joe, and Dave Storm as clients, and then kind of expanded past that to the point you had over 30 employees or something. I don't know how much talent. By that time, you had you had gotten your new partner, changed the name to Big Frame, and then let's pick it up from there.
Okay, so we changed our name to Big Frame. We were in these like really horrible offices off Sunset. We moved into a new office in Culver City, had about 32 employees, about 300 clients, and we were launching 3 different forward-facing brands, Forefront, Wonderly, and Polished.
And those were networks?
Yeah, they were YouTube channels that we would it was sort of what Awesomeness TV did very well. We were attempting to do. So it was a beauty, fashion, lifestyle channel. Wonderly was a kind of nerdy girl channel, and then Forefront was urban comedy.
And Bamo, that was before all this,
Yeah,
right?
Bamo was before, so that was a YouTube original channel, and it was sort of I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It was an amazing piece of experimental art.
So let's talk about that first before we move on. So that was the first time YouTube started investing funds into YouTubers' actual videos, right? And they were just going through people like you to say who are the ones we should invest in?
They were actually investing in companies and not YouTubers. And I think what you're seeing now with YouTube Red is that they've changed the model to go actually invest in YouTubers, which is smart. So they gave the money to Big Frame to do what we wanted. So with Awesomeness, they built Awesomeness. But they were giving them to like celebrities and different production companies around town. And I think Awesomeness far and away is the most successful one. And then there are a couple that are left over, but most of them are no longer in existence, including Bamo.
Was it just like, do whatever you want? Like no strings attached?
There were strings attached. I mean, they needed a certain number of hours of content and they needed to sign off on the concepts. But I mean, so why Jacob and I are laughing if you haven't gone and looked at Bamo already.
And why Sarah's face palming at the moment.
Because the first video, we did a series with Mike Diva, which I still believe is truly amazing. And maybe we'll find its audience now that Mike is such a big internet star.
It was pretty cool, actually.
It was called Turbo Time, and we built a spaceship at Mike's house.
Yes, he threw a lot of parties in that spaceship.
And there are no words to explain. It was called Turbo Time. How else?
Did it involve a green screen?
No, Mike was like kind of a spaceman. He was a huge asshole, and he would like microwave cats, and like Hitler came into the play a couple times.
That was where the fake Tupac first found.
Oh shit! Yeah, I went to my Diva party, and fake Tupac was there, and I was too drunk to process his presence.
That dude's awesome too.
Sexy Saxman made some.
Oh, Sergio.
Yeah, Sergio made some appearances.
Very good people.
Sergio was in Think Tank for a while.
So does this does or does not exist on the
you
internet?
can still see it. It's still there for your viewing pleasure. And you should check it out. It's amazing.
No, that sounds like up my alley.
But we also did a really incredible sci-fi feature basically called Sync, with Corridor Digital.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Corridor Digital was a client at that time, and Joe made some videos for Bama, right?
And Joe did videos. We had a show with Tayzonday's Floating Head where he was like reviewing viral videos.
Tayzonday's the guy who did Chocolate Rain.
Yeah, Chocolate Rain.
Yeah, I met that guy too.
Yeah.
It was a weird night. I was the cover of Dr. Dre's The Chronic for that Halloween. I had a cardboard. We didn't know what to do, and there was this white cardboard just slab around, and I was like, perfect. Like Jacob says all the time, like I am so like themed parties are like a part of my enthusiasm category.
He went to college in
life.
Florida, so
But I wasn't in a frat. Let's not get this twisted. But yeah, so I'm like floating around with like as Dr. Dre's head in this cardboard box, and like I'm like looking around and I'm seeing all these people because Jacob had been around this universe forever, and it was my first time. And I'm like interacting with all these people. It was actually the first time truly I believe I was able to like really be face to face of like with the temperament of different folks who were internet famous. And like I gotta say, like it was a really good crew. Like maybe it was like a really good party. That
what was that experience for you of interacting?
I feel like the simplest way to put it is when, especially if you've built an audience doing it, you in the comfort of your own home with a camera, you're able to be you are absorbed with a lot less anxiety. You're able to be a lot more open, which is ironic because technically you're confessing things to perhaps millions more people than you are at this party. And I feel like the face-to-face interaction was, they weren't awkward at all. They were very friendly, but it was like a very like truncated experience.
Yeah.
Tay was awkward.
What's that?
Tay was awkward.
Which one is he?
Tayzonday.
Tayzonday.
Oh, Tayzonday? Yeah.
He's actively awkward though.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. But
he's honestly one of my favorite people. He's so unique in such a like amazing way. Like my favorite Tay story is
He's
there's
real
two.
as fuck. He's real as fuck.
He's so
He's what you think he is.
And his Facebook posts are epic.
God,
and
they're so good.
I needed him to send me a letter for some reason. I needed him to mail something to Big Frame when we were on our Sunset address. And our address was Los Angeles, California, 90069. And Tay was concerned because 90069 is actually a West Hollywood zip code. So he printed out a municipal zip code map and drew on it for me in different highlighters and then scanned it and emailed it to me with his concerns about the municipal codes.
yeah,
and
but that's thorough.
That's so good.
I needed to assure him that. And I was like, I love this human being so much.
Yeah, he's great.
You know, I have to actually correct myself because in technically the first interaction I had face to face with kind of a YouTube celebrity was actually before I knew they were a YouTube celebrity. Speaking of Florida, I went to Florida State and I was in film school, with one, and there's only 30 of us. So keep in mind, like we all knew each other. And this girl's name happened to be Datev Gallagher, who's known as Lady Dot online. Datev's best friend was a girl named Allie Speed. Allie Speed was always at the parties we were at. We hung out with her. She was a ton of fun. And she had this boyfriend like early on who like she would just always fight with. And like I can't speculate as to why. I would never put blame on anyone, but I just have that memory. And then all of a sudden he was gone. And this guy came in and he was like a really friendly guy. And his name was Charles Trippy. And before I knew him as like who he was, I just kind of would see him around and see her. And it was just like this really interesting relationship. Later on, when, you know, Datev started coming around and I would see even Charles and Allie do this sometimes, they would always have a camera like in front of themselves. And to their fault, like, or not to their fault, it felt weird to me that like almost at like any given moment, like I am either absent from the moment or they're involving me in a moment that, you know, or I'm in the background of a moment I didn't even know was going to be projected amongst millions of people. And like I said, it's the name of the game. Like that is the prerequisite of like live blogging in that way is like cameras on at all times when something's happening.
Yes.
And I think for me, it was a weird moment because as like a human brain processing information, like on a daily basis and seeing something that is so absent from what I'm normally absorbing the social moment to be. And this was before Instagram as well, like blowing up. It was weird to see a camera popping up in a moment not being reserved for anyone physically in the room.
Right.
But for someone else.
Well, it was those two. Sarah sent me on a thing for the Virgin Mobile 25, and I went with Charles and Allie, and that's how I got to know them. And we went to Maryland or something and we met Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And went to this Free Fest, Virgin Mobile's Free Fest. I played bean toss or whatever it's called, where you throw the bean bags in the holes with Richard Branson. Cornhole with Sir Richard Branson, which is going to be the name of my biography, by the way.
Yeah, Cornhole with Richard Branson.
Sir Richard Branson. It'll sound much better next to Cornhole. But yeah, they are two YouTubers who are very, very similar. I mean, they wouldn't like have their fights as a couple on the camera. They wouldn't be like arguing with each other like, let me pull the camera out and see what the crowd thinks about this.
Yeah, for the record, I love them both. Like,
yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're lovely.
And then when they split, that was something that was public. But
Yeah. I mean, it had to be.
yeah, it was interesting because they were the only ones who recorded every single fucking day. Yeah. But I remember going to the YouTube house. Do you remember the YouTube house that was over like near Venice? And it was
419.
Yeah, like Andrea's Choice and Shay Carl and Kasim G and everybody would be over there all the time. But I remember because Shay Carl just did a podcast with Tim Ferriss. Did you listen to it?
Not yet.
Oh my God, you have to listen to it. Anyone who, even if you don't care about the YouTube world, you're probably not this far in this podcast by now, but you should listen to the podcast that Shay Carl did with Tim Ferriss, because for the first time ever, he discusses the fact that he was addicted to alcohol. He was an alcoholic, which was not allowed in his religion. And it was such a powerful moment for him to share that, because he's like this like devout Mormon. His whole channel is about that. And I remember meeting him and seeing him like getting everybody to do shots at this party. And I was like, holy shit, YouTubers aren't what they all seem to be on all of their YouTube videos. And that was pretty crazy. Charles and Ali didn't come across that way.
Yeah.
But
well, it's funny you say that, because when I started working with
changed
YouTubers,
since then. He's changed since then, I should say. He's not an alcoholic anymore.
When I first started working with YouTubers, I was moving from San Francisco, like a young single 20-something-year-old in San Francisco, and you know, there's a lot of parties that happen in San Francisco, and like it's a party town because you can walk everywhere, take public transport, whatever. I had a good time up there. And when I came back, I was like, oh, YouTubers, they're so cool. We're gonna like rage and party. And I got to my first one, and I was like, oh my God, this is like a middle school dance. Obviously, it's different now, but I was like, okay, reel it back in. And Joe is very, innocent and didn't ever party and everything. So
everyone just kind of sat back in their corners and like took their flip cams out and kind of recorded themselves.
It was so fascinating. It was so, I minored in anthropology, and I was like putting my ethnographer's hat on and just like, wow, this is such a unique way of interacting. And
I gotta say,
I kind of loved it because I'm a little awkward too.
Yeah,
so.
it was. I gotta say though, once we started building the think tank, there was so much to focus on. I gotta say that part of the YouTube world, which I think it's probably changed since then, but it was not something I was drawn to. When you get to the YouTube parties, that was what everyone always wanted to go to. Like I had friends who wanted to be YouTubers, and they would ask me if they could tag along, and they would like take me to the YouTube parties. And I remember I introduced Adonde Swoozy to Michelle Fawn, and they built their channel together at that thing. And I went to a couple more parties after that, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is my thing.
Yeah.
It was in like the awkward VidCon parties and stuff. It was a different thing. It's a different world now.
It definitely was. I mean, I actually met Joe at a Halloween party at Phil DeFranco's house before I really knew this world very well. And they were all kind of dressed as each other, and I was very confused. I was like, I don't understand anybody's Halloween costume here.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That's a pretty good story too, right? How you met Joe?
Yeah, I was producing a short film called Olga K's Circus. And Olga K is also a YouTuber and now entrepreneur who's launched a line of socks that's doing very well. And
socks.
Yeah, moosh walks.
Yeah.
So we went to this. I went to this party with the director because we were going to try and like talk to some YouTubers about being in it with Olga, and really pitch Olga on it. And so prior to that, she was like, "You need to know who these people are," because she was kind of introducing me to this world. And so she sent me Joe's channel, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's like really talented." So I had seen his videos, and subscribed to his channel. And I went in and my friends were very drunk and being kind of obnoxious. And as previously stated, that is not sort of the MO at YouTube parties. So he kind of lumped me into that category and was like, ugh.
She's just this party girl.
Yeah. And, but anyways, and I was actually in a relationship at that time anyways, but I asked him to be in the film. And by the time we got around to shooting, we were dating.
Yeah. And because he had asked Phil, like, yo, can I talk to her?
Yeah. And then, so he asked, and then I was like, oh, Phil, I'm going to go have a meeting with Mystery Guitar Man. And he was like, no. I was like, what? Why not? He's like, no, you're going on a date. I was like, oh.
Called it.
Cool.
So you owe Phil a lot.
I do. I owe Phil a lot. So, I really do.
So speaking of, we went on a long tangent, but okay, selling.
Oh yeah, that question we were talking about.
Selling the company.
30 minutes ago.
How much time you got left? Like another 20, 30 minutes or what?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool.
My child's asleep, so, you
Good.
know.
And Joe's watching him because you made him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, selling your company. What was the, where we left off, you had 30 employees. How much talent did you have?
We had about 300.
Wow, for real?
Yeah.
I remember walking into your office and seeing you had Iron Solomon, who was my favorite freestyle rapper. And I was like, holy shit, they have fucking Iron Solomon. I texted my friend a picture because he used to take Polaroids of everybody and put them on a bulletin board. And I texted my friend a picture and I was like, yo, my old manager manages Iron Solomon now. So who were you managing at the time?
I had Miranda Sings. I had Sawyer Hartman. I had passed Tyler Oakley and Miss Glamorazzi or Ingrid Nilsson to Lisa Filippelli, who was kicking ass with them. She was repping Amanda Steele. We had Joe, obviously. We had Day Storm. We had all of the Forefront and Wonderly channels. And, so pretty solid roster. I know I'm forgetting some people.
And at the time,
Jimmy Tatro, yeah.
And there was, at the time, 4 other MCNs that were out there. There was Maker.
Well, no, there were a lot at this point. So, they had sort of opened up when they did the YouTube originals, they enabled a lot of those channels to become MCNs. And so there were all these sort of like smaller MCNs, but the major players were Machinima, Full Screen, Awesomeness, Big Frame, Maker, Revision 3, which then sold to Discovery, and Style Hall, Dance On. Yeah.
But those first 5 you said were kind of like the first 5 that kind of emerged, and then people started saying, holy shit, this is a thing.
Yeah, and then started to, international ones started popping up. And
And so did you have the goal of like, I'm going to sell this company, or is this something that your partner introduced into your mind?
I wasn't sure. I thought, well, I think we're going to build something valuable, and I really wanted to operate it for a long time. But I also didn't know what that really meant, and I didn't really know what that entailed. And when I, learned I was going to be a mom and, we were going to go raise another round, and the industry at that time was consolidating. Maker had sold, Revision 3 had sold, Phil had sold to Discovery as well. It just sort of felt right. It felt like the right time to go through that process. So it wasn't an easy decision, though.
Yeah? And what was the process?
It was extremely challenging, honestly. The actual acquisition by Awesomeness was incredible. It took 4 days from start to finish. And nice. That's unheard of. And I think that's why it's been such a great partnership, because it didn't start off on this foot of like, you guys just raked us over the coals and then graced us with an offer, which is really what it feels like when you go through these like intense due diligence. I mean, there was like one time I remember going through due diligence with a company that I won't say the name of, and they were like, okay, in 2011, you had a contract with this channel, and this channel literally had like 3,000 subscribers, and you didn't auto renew, but she was still in the network, and then she left. Well, do you have the termination paperwork? I was like, really? Like, to what end? Like, why do you need this information? And we didn't have, so anyways.
Did you have to make it up and find them and ask them?
No, we were just like, this is not how this works,
Yeah. So describe due diligence to someone. Let's say we have someone who's listening to this podcast right now, who is building a company. Maybe they're a year before you were when you were seeking acquisition, and they're like, "What the fuck am I about to go through right now? What kinds of things did you go through that they can expect?" And what is due diligence? Yeah,
due diligence is a process by which the company that wants to acquire you goes through and places values on the assets that you've built. So, it's a lot more personal than you think it's going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of paperwork, and it is. We brought on a banker, and so he helped. You have to create these data rooms where you're uploading all of this information so they can go, and their lawyers and their teams can go and kind of audit it, basically.
Who's paying for this? Are they paying for it?
No.
You have to pay for it. Oh, because you're selling the company. So look, asshole, if you want us to buy you, you got to pony up for some lawyers. Yeah,
you can do it. I mean, people don't always hire bankers, but it's a...
You felt good about the prospects, and so you wanted to do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you come up with a number yourself that you think it's going to be?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. We came up with something that we felt was fair.
Was it more than 15 million?
It was
well, you sold for 15
million. You could just shake or nod your head if you don't want to answer that question.
That's public information.
But we did sell for 15 million, yes.
But was your number higher or lower than that you thought it was going to be?
It was very close to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good job.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, if you look around the space and you see your colleagues selling for $1 billion, it's hard to not feel like
you want a little more.
Yeah. But at the same time, we didn't play that game. We weren't a scaled MCN. We didn't have 90,000 channels, and to be totally honest, I think my advice to people starting companies is to really think about if you do need to take investment. And most of the time the answer will be yes. But for a management company, which is truly what we were, I mean, yes, there was an MCN, but the only way MCNs are shitty businesses because you have small margins on top of small margins. And the only way that business works is if you scale. That was never what I wanted to build.
And scale means get a whole bunch of them.
A whole bunch of them. 10, 20, 90,000.
Right. Is that a real number or were you
That's a real number.
God damn.
Yeah. Awesomeness has 90,000 channels.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for going back to this due diligence process, was there a period, were they going all the way back to before Big Frame?
No.
Okay, so it was just when Big Frame was Big Frame. Yeah, I was going to say, were there a couple of years where you're like, can we, before we get started, I need you to know that from this year to this year, we didn't really have our shit together.
Yeah, yes. But we just didn't tell them that there was a company before Big Frame because it didn't matter. Okay. I had a business manager who made sure everything was legally within the realm of what needed to happen. So I was pretty buttoned up on that. And I was running payroll through a payroll company and it was legit.
Right.
But I was my profits were $25,000,
Yeah. Which isn't
for
a whole
me,
lot.
I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
For a potential acquirer, it'd be like, what? So
that's still scary. 25 is a very scary low number, though, and thinking of living in LA.
Oh, I mean, I didn't pay myself a salary for 6 months.
That's how it always goes.
Yeah. So in terms of advice around due diligence, it's it always takes longer, except in our very fortunate turn of events with Awesomeness, which I, again, will be forever grateful for. It really is. It is grueling. It's personal. I mean, I had to disclose to lawyers that I was pregnant before I disclosed to friends, and I told my family.
How many months in were you?
I found out that I was pregnant when I was 8 weeks. No, not even. 6 weeks pregnant, so very early.
Okay.
And so I waited until I was in the safe zone of 11 weeks.
Right.
And then disclosed to lawyers that I was pregnant. And it was really intense. I wanted to drink and take Xanax and calm down because it's in
right. This, it's a stressful process. You have all the times I feel like being pregnant during that time isn't as scary anymore because you're you may not get as acquired. It's not scary because you're afraid you're not going to get acquired. It's scary because you know that when you get back from these goddamn due diligence meetings, you can't have a drink, you're saying. I feel like that's the scariest part.
And also,
you're
everyone's
trapped with this sober. absorption of this stress and madness.
I was like a raw ball of nerves, and there was nothing. I just had to sit with it. You can't
even. There's nothing you can do. I mean,
you can't even drink like calming tea.
Right.
Oh
Literally.
God, that's terrible.
They're like, no. And then everyone's there going, don't be stressed out with the baby. I'm like, fuck you.
That's the worst thing you could say.
Because this is the most stressful thing that's ever happened to me on top of being a ball of hormones and pregnant. And you know what? My child is a calm, lovely human being. Thank God.
Yeah, he's a pretty good
He's not a neurotic ball of nerves.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this poor child.
No one will ever know it was a company acquisition baby.
Exactly. I know.
But what about, were you afraid though? Because when I think of, I'm a complete novice in this, and I don't think Patrick or I even have the idea in our head of selling our company at any point in the near future. But I guess we also just don't even know what that means.
If you want to invest, though,
yeah,
if
you want to invest, go for it. But I guess we don't even, like, for investment, it kind of makes sense. It's like, okay, well, they want to make some money back, so you have to prove that you can make money. But for selling your company, what does that mean? Like, what would we still get to do?
It's different. And you know what, it's different in every situation. And when we got acquired, we were part of a startup incubator called Launchpad. And I asked the guy who ran Launchpad to set me up with other founders who had gone through this process, just to hear what their experiences were, to get lessons of what to do, what not to do, because the reality is you as the founder have been working on this for a long time, but this is new information to your employees, and some of them might not be happy. And that was actually really surprising for me. I was like, everyone's going to be celebrating with me. And they just weren't, because Awesomeness was actually a competitor of us. And we bumped up to them in a marketplace, and we defined ourselves as not being that. But once we explained our rationale and why they were great partners and a good fit for us, and had the founders come and talk to the team and everything, it kind of calmed down. But, we're really fortunate. I mean, Big Frame still exists as Big Frame, if not a better version of Big Frame, because they said, you know what, just go back to doing what you do so well, which is management. Don't worry about scaling. Obviously worry about revenues and bottom line, but don't worry about being like a big scaled MCN. And that was very relieving. I think for the team and for us. And look, there's challenges. There are definitely cultural differences between Big Frame and Awesomeness for sure. We moved our office over there and relied on infrastructure of Awesomeness. So things definitely changed. But
what were those cultural differences like? Cause you left, you sold the company.
Yes.
15 days before you turned 30, left for maternity leave, were on maternity leave, had your kid, came back, and now you were at this different company culture, and all of your talent was there, all of your clients were there, all of the brand relationships you've been building for the last however many years were there. Everything was completely different. And now you're a mom walking back in, like storming in the place, like, what's up, bitches? Sarah Penna in the house. What was it? That was
actually how it was. I walked in the first day. I was like, I'm back, bitches.
Yeah, that's right. Throw a cigarette on the carpet inside.
Yeah, exactly. Just burn down the place. It was really hard.
Like what part?
It's like going from bullpen to cubicle, right? I've experienced that before, where I was in a small, it was a room where like the team was in this literally as a bullpen. We have like a little like putting green that we got that we bought on like Amazon or something, and chilling, lounging. And then we moved buildings, looked around, we're like sitting in cubicles, and we're like, fuck, like we can't have fun anymore. Is that what it was like?
It's worse than that too, though, because she had to have other people managing her clients and then come back to them.
Yeah, that was probably the hardest part. I would say, Awesomeness, they incorporated some of Big Frame's culture, which I thought was really cool.
Really? Like what?
Like the town halls. I started this thing called Town Hall, where we would invite our talent. They do them just internally, but we would do kind of like a State of the Union, and then we would let our talent ask questions, and we live streamed it so that people who weren't there. And so Awesomeness, we do town halls now, but it's just with the company. And so that's cool. I think that I loved seeing that sort of tradition carry on, and Big Frame still does town halls with talent. Cool. So I think the hardest part though was the client part, because I came back 12 weeks later, which is not a long time, but my clients were used to being handled by other people, and I get that. And so I sort of lost a lot of clients very quickly.
What clients were they?
Like, what were they, like, what was a client? Because it's not, the talent's not a client, right?
Yeah, the talent's a client.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I lost talent. And that was really hard. And I sort of like lost my way.
So it was like a mass breakup.
It was. I mean, it didn't happen
They
like
all
it
found
wasn't
someone better or just someone different while you were gone.
And the reality is, I sort of took a step. I almost had a nervous breakdown. I'm going to get real with you guys. And I was like, I think I need to just take a break. Like, this isn't working. I'm like so stressed out. I have this child at home. I'm like pumping 3 times a day at work, which is the fucking worst. Literally did it for 11 months, and every time wanted to poke my eyeballs out.
And aren't you restricted in terms of you can't do certain drugs as well?
No, you can't, and you can't take like anti-anxiety medicine. And
you can have like a glass of wine though, finally, right?
Yeah, you know, every once in a while, but not really. So it was once again, and I was like on a very restricted diet, and it was I didn't really want to talent manage, but I also didn't need to run the company in the same way. And so I was sort of in this no man's land. And it was hard. I was like, I want to get out of this whole industry. And that's, that's when I joined the board of the nonprofit that I'm on and started kind of climbing.
Grocery ships, right?
Grocery ships, yeah. Started kind of climbing my way out of that mindset, and that's when sort of inspiration for Awestruck happened. And I'd had this idea for a long time, and sort of was pitching it to Brent and Brian, and they were very much on board.
Brent and Brian?
Yeah, they run Awesomeness.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and Brian.
And so you were basically like, my saving grace is that I'm going to build something new.
I'm either going to quit or I'm going to build something new. But whatever this is at Big Frame, like, energetically, it was not working. And I truly believe in that. Like, if I looked deep inside myself at like the 3 a.m. wake up to feed my child moments, and actually I was grateful for those, because that's when you're the most honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't working.
I'm acting like I know. I'm like, yeah. Totally.
You're breastfeeding and panic attack.
Pumping at work, the worst. So,
guys, we're getting real. I told you.
No, and first of all, I really appreciate you being candid. I don't know if it was the one Lagunitas that just like put you over the top.
As we've talked about, I haven't been drinking very much in the last 2 years.
Did you? When you went,
there's another one here if you want it.
No, I'm not even done with this one.
Well, I'm almost done with the second.
When you had that nervous breakdown, was that the moment where you're like, I've got to get a coach? Or was this like, was that part of the package? Was that like, hey, we're going to let you, we're going to buy you out. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have you town halls, which, by the way, them acquiring the like intellectual property of the town halls, so to speak, is a testament to you. Because that was probably a shade of what they saw in your company that said, okay, this is a differentiator that makes them, and we like this.
Yeah,
but during those acquisition conversations, was that when the coach was brought up? Did they bring it up? Did you bring it up?
So she came on to help. She was like running a couple offsites for Big Frame. So after the acquisition, and she had been coaching, she'd been coaching our COO. And then, she said, I want to do a session with you because, Steve and my co-founder knew how much I was struggling because, I was very honest with him, and he was sort of helping me through it. But he was like, you need to talk to Andrea. So I did like 1 mega 2-hour session with her. And I was like, that I have to do this. And so they agreed to, have her be my coach for a while.
Cool.
Which was really cool. And I mean, honestly, like, it's such a gift. Cause I really don't think I would be where I am with Awestruck and with sort of managing everything that I did without her.
Does she kind of operate like inadvertently as like part-time therapist, or is it strictly like, okay, this is how you have a press conference?
She's definitely like, if we need to talk about personal stuff, we will, but like, I'm pretty good. Like, my personal life's like pretty solid. And so, there are some times where I like bring things up. It's really like my work life and my leadership skills.
Sure.
And she will definitely say she's not a therapist. It's very much about, but she's compassionate and, radically empathetic and helps, talk through certain things if I'm having like a hard day, or, I can always call her and like, I'm having a panic attack, which happens so much less now that I have her.
So it's not just like pure alpha propaganda, like your HBIC and that's it. And like everyone bows down to you. It's like,
Absolutely.
all right, look, this is how you communicate with the staff, and everybody's different. So
yeah, I mean, she's very much like, you are a magnificent creature and I love you and you're a badass. But also, my favorite thing about that she's coached me is that like leaderships, the best leaders reflect the glory of their team, and they don't take the glory for themselves. And that's really a sign of leadership, when you can sit in a room and say, my team is amazing and they accomplished this, and this specific person accomplished this, and this specific. If you sit in a room and say, I launched Awestruck, and these people work for me, they just do what I say, but I'm like this badass who knows how everything. And like, while, you know, that's just not good leadership. And that was such a switch in my mind, because you see in Hollywood this rhetoric of like, you have to beat your chest and constantly be talking about your accomplishments, and I suck at that. And so I was telling her, like, I don't think I have the I have this voice in my head, and I've had it since I started Big Frame, that's saying, you don't have the temperament to do this. Like, you're never going to succeed because you're too empathetic, you're too soft. And she's taught me that actually those are strengths. They're not weaknesses. And like, if you can tap into those and be HBIC as well, and like handle your shit, you know, that's really the sign of a true leader. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think rhetoric is one of the most underrated characteristics, I think, of a great leader, or simply just a leader that is going to either keep his team around or experience high turnover. Because like the difference between I and we is discernible by anyone who actually has stake in the company. And so if you've got, you know, if you've got even just 3 people working for you, and you all put together a project, like they're listening. Like if you're at a mixer, for example, and you're off having a conversation with someone completely different, but they're within earshot, and you say, "Oh, well, I did this project where, you know, we worked with Nabisco to do like a Nabisco Phil DeFranco collab video." Like, I'm just winging it here. And like,
someone's got to make that up.
And
now.
they hear you and they're like, motherfucker, I put together the deal. I handed it to you on a silver platter. You stamped it at best.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here listening to you spew this bullshit. Wait till I start my own company and trash you.
Exactly. And you know what? You just described culture. I think people think culture is ping pong tables and beer kegs and cold brew. It's not. That's nice. Like, yay for that. That's cool. But what you described right there, that's culture.
I completely agree.
Yeah, there was a moment that, I mean, I had to learn that lesson myself pretty early on too. And being careful with taking credit for things and where to take credit for things. And then there was a moment early on when Patrick started running the company with me, that he was just like, one of our company mottos is, we have a responsibility to the world to expose them to dope shit. And it makes it so much easier, because it is not saying we have a responsibility to the world to show them how dope I am. It's showing them how dope other people are that are around us. And there was a moment when, Patrick was like, yeah, just get in a room and talk about how sick all the people around you are. And now that's kind of like what we do when we pitch something. Yeah. Like right now we're pitching this big escape room, and we're just talking about how sick the art director is.
What?
Yeah.
I want to do that.
I'll tell you about it. We want to build an escape room in October, and using some of John's connections in the special effects makeup world.
Oh my God.
And do this crazy thing with an art show around it. And so we just talk every time that we get on, like we tell them our last show was this and it was really dope and they should, you know, see it. But we don't go into, this is how sick I am and this is why I made the show so sick. Yeah. It's like, this is how dope our PR lady was, and here's an introduction to her. This is how dope our art director guy is going to be. Here's an introduction to him. And then in combination with another concept that I, in particular, have a lot of struggles with, and I always know if I'm doing a good job at my job or a bad job at my job, if I know I'm not living by some of these principles. There's a book that this Navy SEAL leader wrote called Extreme Ownership, which you should check out. And it's basically just a book about anytime anything goes wrong, you have to figure out a way to accept it. If that your team did, that something went wrong, you have to figure out a way to accept it and say, this is my fault and this is how I'm going to fix it. Yeah. And combining that with talking about how dope everyone is around you at all times is such a recipe for success.
It's so fulfilling when you start doing it. It's amazing, because you think talking about yourself and bragging and building yourself up is fulfilling, and it's just not. It's just empty calories. And I think your point about accountability is so important. And I feel like 80% of workplace situations could be solved by accountability.
Yep.
So it's hard. It's so hard. And I think it's like, I'm so happy to hear that you're working on that, because it's so powerful to say, this falls ultimately, especially if you're a business owner or you're running a division, or even if you just have, like you said, 3 people working for you. Ultimately, the buck stops with you, and you are accountable for what goes on. And if you don't know what's going on, you're still accountable because you didn't know and you should.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's hard.
The first time I was exposed to that idea was when the police told me they were going to arrest me because someone threw an event at our place and didn't get a permit, and I didn't know. And they were like, you have to fucking know. It's your venue. I was like, oh, I guess I'm accountable here.
Yeah. Painful. Yeah.
So what's it like running? Because you started this thing called Awestruck, which is content for millennial moms. And it was something that you saw there was kind of a gap. You were like, millennial moms are this very complex group of people.
Yes.
And there's a certain type of content that they're not getting that I feel like I can provide. But there were other people doing it. Like Maker had one called The Mom's View. What's the difference?
We have Snooki and JWoww.
So true.
You know, I mean, I joke, but we really take this like very raw, real approach to motherhood. We swear, we drink,
Nice.
We make beautiful cakes. I came up with this line that I think really encapsulates Awestruck very well, which is, we like being domestic, but we're not afraid to order takeout. And
beautiful.
That's how these moms are. And that's how I am. It's like, I like making beautiful things for my child. And I love cooking dinner almost every night when I'm not doing podcasts. And I love and drinking beer. But
this is a takeout night.
Yes, this is totally a takeout night. But I also like not being defined as a mom. And I like people being surprised when they find out I'm a mom. And I like having a life and showing my child that he is the center of my world, but he's not the center of the world. And that's how these moms are. And people weren't really speaking to that in video content. So just very real, raw, honest, funny, entertaining. There's a million places you can go to get, DIY tutorials. We're one of them, but we also want to make you laugh.
That's an awesome approach to take, because I think every decade that goes by, I think the door is opening, especially for female voices, but in particular mothers who are tired of being pigeonholed into like, okay, life's over now. Like, this is my box. Yeah. Like in my mind, I almost view it as like a stripe on like a military uniform. It's like, this is an accomplishment and it comes with certain responsibilities, but like, I'm still the same woman I was before. I just need to either adopt certain lifestyle changes so that I am, orchestrating the right messages for my child or for the little individual who I want to grow up to be a certain, way, not as in forcing them to play football, but just wanting them to be careful and thoughtful and kind. And your lifestyle decisions will affect that. But I think creating a channel like you've done really opens up the door for mothers who have their kids away for a second or on their lap even to view this content and be like, you know what? Like, this is still fun as fuck.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny. Like, it's funny. Even the tough moments are like, you can look back and you're like, that's hilarious. Like, pumping at work, and I had to take a phone call and I closed like an $800,000 deal, like, pumping. Like, that's funny.
That's kind of G shit, though. Like that's kind of fucking awesome.
The first time the first time I dropped my son, let's be honest. He like I didn't know that he could roll, and I sat him on the bed and I hear thunk, thunk. And I was like, and then crying. And I realized he fell on our dog. So I successfully traumatized the whole family in one go. And like, I was mortified and I cried, and now it's funny. He's totally fine, of course.
Yeah, he was fine. Well, I saw a video of him today, choosing that on your Snapchat, choosing to drink water with a spoon and like the cap of a peanut butter or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those moments are pretty damn hilarious.
So he's very funny.
You catch them all. You document every one of those moments.
Yes,
you came up with the name Awestruck, correct?
It was a collaborative effort, actually. It was such a stressful thing to do. Naming is like the hardest thing.
I would love to have seen your like brainstorm board, like Mom TV, like Cool Mom.
Oh, we had
.org.
We had like Wow, which is Mom upside down. We had like Moment with the mom bit, and I was just
what was the worst?
I think maybe Wow.
Wow.
But we had like Juno.
That's also World of Warcraft.
Juno could have been interesting.
I kind of like Juno.
Yeah, Wow I think is funny. I totally see the moment where Wow happened, which like it was one of the first things out of someone's mouth, and they knew it wasn't the best idea, but they just had to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. We were so desperate.
There was a lot of things that it could have been World of Womanhood. World of like all these different things.
That's good, yeah, like a mom gaming channel.
You could have just stolen the World of Warcraft logo,
Pump while you play.
Pump while you play.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's so good.
We could talk numbers.
We could start a new company. I think Brian came up with Awestruck though, which was like a nod to Brian Robbins, which is like a nod to Awesomeness TV, obviously, and the moment you feel when you see your child, you're like awestruck with love and awestruck with like.
So it was
holy
not
shit.
a mom that came up with it.
Well, Brian's a genius, so he can program
you can
the
get
teens.
to a mom.
Yeah, I mean he has 2 teenage sons, but he also has a new baby that's Jonah's age.
Yeah, and that sentiment of like the awe you feel when you see a child, enter the world is synonymous with both the father and the mother.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think it wasn't too much of a far cry for him to develop that concept.
Right. Yes.
But that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't, if I ever start something new, the name is always,
we had a hard time coming up with a name for this.
That's true.
A little bit. We figured it out relatively quickly, but yeah, naming things is hard. When I worked at DeviantArt, we were naming, I think it's called Muro now. It was their online Photoshop, like web-based Photoshop. In fact, Swoozy started making a lot of his videos on it. And I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever done in my entire life because I work in the marketing department. I sat down with the engineers and designers and we would sit in this room that had Xboxes and we would play Call of Duty and eat whatever cool foods they had, like you said, company culture with the fucking ping pong table or whatever. And they had these shaded windows that overlooked, it was on Hollywood Boulevard, like overlooking the Sunset Strip. And we would just take out dry erase markers and just write names on the windows the whole time. And it was tough because you were just writing and writing and writing. And he was like, I want it to be 2 syllables. And then, okay, we have to erase an entire window of shit. And it took us weeks and weeks. That was one of the hardest decisions to do, to come up with a name for that shit.
It's the things people don't think of when they start companies.
Yeah, we luckily inherited our name because John already had a company called Think Tank Productions. We just took it from him. So
that's a good one. I love it.
Think Tank Gallery works.
When seeking out creators for Awestruck, are you just reaching out to people who you're like, who are already like super famous mom? And like obviously the JWoww Snooki situation is a completely understandable business decision. Are you looking for any like fresh mom talent who's like has content experience?
Totally. So we sort of I have a team of 2 on my talent side, and they're amazing. Maria actually used to work at the Mom's View, and she just scours and finds these people, and we're pretty strategic about it. We have a lot of really great moms who are very diverse in their voices and their skill sets, whether it's like cooking or DIY or just family vlogging. And then we have actually started this sort of niche of celebrity talent and launching YouTube channels for them. So we have a couple big announcements that are going to come up pretty soon that are very exciting.
Awesome.
Is that a new thing? Launching YouTube channels for celebrities?
It's relatively new. I think The Rock just launched one, but we're really kind of like the go-to place, and it's cool. For mom celebrities because they don't really have a platform to talk about being moms. We run Zoe Saldana's production company YouTube channel, and so it's interesting. There are kind of different forms that it takes.
Is it something that's difficult to create these new kinds of things while you feel like there's all these other companies around you that are kind of nipping at your heels for shit that you started trailblazing?
Yes. It was harder at Big Frame though, because no one's really doing it in the way that we're doing it at Awestruck. So we sort of have a lot of leverage right now where it's like, okay, you want your client to have the services that we have. We're going to be able to negotiate pretty hard because we don't really need that anymore. But it is hard. I mean, there's always competition and talent poaching, and it's way worse in the YouTube world than it is in the traditional world. I think there's sort of like a history of not poaching clients in the traditional world, where in YouTube world, it's like just standard fare. And I think YouTubers have a tendency to want to see what else is out there, which is what makes them so great and adventurous and innovative, but also can be challenging in a kind of a management situation.
Well, from a business perspective, Awestruck is very interesting because, I mean, obviously the demographic I think I agree with you. There's open footing there for sure. I don't know, like I can't think of a definitive cool mom network off the top of my head. I haven't necessarily been looking that hard either though. But what I also think is interesting is the brand deals can be a really hidden treasure, because for the most part, most of the brands that are catering to moms are very, very large companies, like almost like Procter & Gamble status.
Absolutely.
Literally Procter & Gamble status. So have you seen the fruits of your labor from that perspective, like kind of solidify or I guess validate this venture that you're going on? Like,
yeah, it's definitely starting. I mean, sort of taking a step back and looking at the scaled MCN world that we're sort of exiting now. We're sort of, leaving that world. The theory there was that we would, aggregate all of these channels and then make margins on them, and we could sell them to brands and advertisers. But the reality was, when you have 90,000 channels, first of all, only a small percentage are getting brand deals. And second of all, at that point, you're just like a microcosm of Google. And as a brand, why wouldn't I just buy media from Google, right? So what we said was, and what Awesomeness really, and Tastemade figured out early on, was we're going to target a specific demographic, right? And the value of that is that that's hard for Google to accomplish. They can't draw a circle around specific demographics necessarily. I mean, they can with media buying and targeting and those things, but for big sort of sponsored campaigns and, original pieces of content, if you as an advertiser want to buy millennial mom content, which to your point, many, many do, there's not a lot of inventory and there's no one place to go. So suddenly we become this go-to place. And we have definitely seen, as we've hit a certain scale, which is still relatively small.
Sure.
We've seen brands be very eager to work with us because we have access to this audience that they want.
Yeah, it's an important demographic because
we spend money.
And interestingly enough, and obviously it depends on the age of the child, but they're technically hitting two birds with one stone, because if this kid is using, I don't know, Garnier like Fructis or whatever, when like she's like a 8-year-old kid till she's going through middle school and high school, like guess what she's buying when she's in college, and guess who's buying her that stuff while she's still in like her younger ages going through these schools. And moms, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, go ahead.
Moms really look to their peers for product recommendations. And so Awestruck is that sort of cool mom friend that you trust and is going to tell you what to buy. And so we are protective with the brand. We're not just going to go and do anything, but we're brands that we think are great for moms, we're going to promote.
So speaking of that, what, early on in the YouTube world, what kinds of, as brands were starting to figure out how to leverage YouTubers and their audiences and maybe the multi-channel networks that were managing these YouTubers, what kinds of things did you see as brands started to figure this out and cut brand deals? Once it moved from AdSense dollars to brand deal dollars being the main thing around the Vine time and shit like that, what kinds of things were you watching happen that that brands don't fuck with anymore?
Meaning like, were there practices that brands did that they don't do anymore?
Yeah. Like as people were figuring it out, what was the first things that were successful and like, how did it start to change into the world we're at today?
So in the beginning, we were really getting experimental ad dollars. So as an agency, you would have, let's say like 30 grand left over for the year. And if you didn't spend it, that money went away. So they're like, we'll just experiment with these like YouTubers. This is like a cool thing that I heard about. And if it goes viral, then I'm like the cool guy at the agency. And if it doesn't, then whatever, was 30 grand.
And a YouTuber's like blown away that there's 30,000 fucking dollars.
We're rich. And so that's sort of like the beginning. And that's really, as advertisers have gotten more sophisticated and sort of come to this place, and really, you know, YouTube and influencer marketing being a true line item in their budget now. You know, you're seeing, we're having conversations with media buying agencies now, not just sort of these small boutique experimental agencies. And that's a huge difference. I mean, that's where you start seeing these numbers of, you know, the TV dollars flowing into digital. You know, the reality is the pie is still a lot smaller, and there are a lot more pieces that need to be doled out. So it is hard. But we are seeing sort of these bigger campaigns, and especially campaigns wanting to work with, let's say, Awesomeness is owned and operated, or Awestruck's owned and operated, and have influencers in them. But I'm seeing a lot fewer sort of just purely influencer-led campaigns, which I find very interesting. And a lot of articles coming out are stating sort of the lack of reliable ROI, which on the one hand, I understand, you know, if you're trying to drive in-store traffic to your CVS or whatever, and you do a branded campaign and you don't see a significant spike, I understand that. But at the same time, how are you measuring ROI on outdoor billboards?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant on that business. But to me, you can genuinely see people engaging with your brand, and that's valuable. If it's done right, and frankly, it's not always done right. Yeah. And that's why you need like incredible salespeople like we have who've been in this business for a long time and understand the needs of both sides.
Sure. So let's role play. Let me put you in a meeting. So like, okay. I just have one quick question. I flew all the way from New York to ask you this.
Yeah.
Why an influencer over spending my money anywhere else?
Because an influencer has an audience that is seeking out their content and is following them, and the vast majority of influencers will not promote a product that they don't genuinely believe in and love. So you're going to get a genuine person reviewing your product to an audience that's seeking that content out and looking to that person, because they're influential, to tell them what to buy and to suggest movies to watch, and will genuinely engage with a product if they feel like that influencer truly cares about it. And that's a lot more powerful than scrolling through, you know, flipping through a magazine.
Okay.
Are you sold?
I'm sold. Yeah. You're amazing. I love your company. You're brilliant.
Thank you.
So $1 million. Stepping out of that meeting and to ask a question about what we had just discussed in this meeting, what are the ethics of a influencer if I do pay them to endorse, a film that our studio has created? Do they have to say, "Hey, what's up? Hey guys, I'm YouTuber, whatever. I was paid to review this movie and it's great." Like, do they have to disclose that?
Yes.
Okay.
They're very strict FTC rules, and there have been some recent instances with like Warner Brothers, for example.
With PewDiePie.
The PewDiePie situation.
Can you tell that story?
I'm not intimately familiar with it. I just read, you know, about it, but it was, you know, they got in trouble for having him positively review games without disclosing it appropriately. He disclosed it in the description, which is one thing, but you do have to verbally disclose it. And that's why you see on tweets and stuff, it will say hashtag ad or hashtag SPON for sponsored.
Or in newsletters, it'll say sponsored in advance. It's an interesting thing, because there's, a lot of the reason why that's such a big deal is because people are stealing content from YouTubers so heavily now. And that was, I think those videos wouldn't be very stealable, because I think they were Let's Plays, which are just these massive like behemoths of a video, or someone just plays a game for a long ass time and he just wasn't saying anything negative about it the whole time he was playing. And that was what was the problem.
Right.
But you can easily remove from the description of the video that this is a sponsored thing. And I think other people that Warner Brothers paid weren't putting that at all. They weren't saying at all that it was sponsored. But people can steal shit and just put it up on Facebook or Instagram or wherever nowadays, and then there's no way to know. Although I guess you could do that and just cut that part out. So.
Well, I think there's this sort of FTC rules and regulations component, and then I think there's the trust with your audience. If I'm a makeup reviewer and I'm being paid to review a certain mascara, as an audience member, I want to know that, and it's not going to detract. I certainly would hope that you had tried it out before and you genuinely like it. And I will tell you again, the vast majority of YouTubers will not do something if they don't like it. And especially with products, whether it's like a face cream or a mascara or something, they will need to try it before they will agree to review it.
For sure.
And so I think you do lose a little bit of trust with your audience.
Do you have to overtly say, I'm getting paid for this? Or is there rhetoric you can use to kind of dance around it? Where you're like, hey, like I'm working with Marvel today to bring you this review on blah, blah, blah.
I think it's recently changed because of all of this PewDiePie stuff. I think you actually have to say they paid you. Because back in the day, we just said, oh, I'm working with, or thanks for allowing me to make this video, or helping me, like collaborating with me on this video.
Yeah, we can say at the gallery presented by.
Yeah, presented by.
Or in collaboration with.
It's a little awkward to say in,
yeah.
as you're saying it.
True.
Not
I think for we have this big break bread sign up here. But Cirque du Soleil asked us to say with art inspired by, and they wanted we had to say it like that. So sometimes they have specific ways that it fits into their marketing campaign. But what about someone like Lewis from Unbox Therapy? All he does is unbox electronics, and sometimes people pay him to unbox their electronics. That's a really weird version of that because he's doing it anyway. And testing them. He's like testing the products once it's there. Does he have to say that now? Like they paid me to send me this box? And
I think so. And again, I would want to know as an audience member.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the trust. And again, I don't think it diminishes. And I would hope that the brand was confident enough for their product where they say, give me a true review. And we've had that. I mean, the most extreme example was Miracle Whip. They wanted Joe to make a video, and they're like, if you hate it, we want you to say that you hate it. They had this whole campaign I think they were like paying for either somebody's wedding or someone's divorce, like depending on, it was a very weird campaign. We didn't do
That's
it.
So dope.
We didn't do it, but I was like, I love this brand for being like, they had commercials, TV commercials where people were like, there were couples. One couple was like, I love Miracle Whip. And the other was like, I hate it. It's disgusting. And you're like, and I'm still talking about it. This was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, for real.
Get on them.
So I love brands that are willing to be playful.
That's an example of brands that are learning how to alienate an audience. Like PewDiePie alienated a whole bunch of people, and the brand probably suffered for that very reason.
Yeah.
So are you seeing brands now that are asking YouTubers to produce more original content, like saying, hey, what do you want to do next? Can we just fund it?
You're seeing brands want to act like studios. So Pepsi, Red Bull, everyone wants to be Red Bull. And I hope that they are, because that's great for us as content creators. Right. Everyone wants to own a vertical or a YouTube channel or or original piece of content. And I love that model. I think it goes back to my original thesis of how can we enable these artists to make their art, whether that's vlogging or something as, amazing as a Mystery Guitar Man video. And so brands almost being like patrons of this talent. I like that more than this was brought to you by blah, blah, blah.com, whatever it might be. Yeah. I think it's way more inspiring and frankly, for someone like a Pepsi, it's really smart because, we're not buying sugar water as much as we used to.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So do you see that being what do you see the future of your position being and the position of new media?
I think that we're going to continue to see the evolution of platforms. So, for example, we distribute content on Go90. Obviously, Netflix and Hulu are major players. I don't even really consider them digital media, but I don't think it even matters anymore. This convergence that Al Gore talked about has happened. You don't know. I don't know where my favorite shows are distributed on, except for Hulu or Netflix. I don't know what TV network or cable network they're on. Yeah. So I think this sort of explosion of platforms, and then obviously VR and AR are sort of awkwardly starting to come onto the scene, and the implications of what that's going to do to change how we consume media. It'll be very interesting, I think, in this Olympics to see the VR technology. There's a lot of that streaming going on.
So what do you, let's talk about that. What do you see? Because for me, VR is an exciting frontier as an artist. Mm-hmm. For me, it's Patrick and I were talking today about a show that we want to produce. Lace, the gallery in Hollywood, was pitching for their young curators program, whatever it's called. And you could pitch them whatever you want. And I was like, hey, I have this VR idea. Let's see if we can try to make something like that happen. And for me, that's where the inspiration comes there. But for a brand, what are they looking at when they look at VR?
Well, I think the 3 areas that VR is going to be successful in are news, art, and sports.
News?
News. Totally. Like documentary. More documentary, not like the 24-hour news
like
cycle.
Get dropped off in a...
Like, imagine if you could go experience what it's like to be a Syrian refugee.
Yeah.
You know, or you could experience
They
the
did
DNC.
that, actually. They did that.
Yeah.
Someone did
The New York Times did it.
Where you were walking through a Syrian refugee camp and you could look all around.
Yeah.
That was very, very touching, actually.
Yeah. I think it's, I think those are sort of the most powerful, and games, obviously. Okay. Video games are number one.
Yeah. And porn.
What? Oh, yeah, and porn, of course, of course. That will be the first to like really do it
already
right.
is. It already is.
Okay.
On the news
I'm not
tip,
familiar with that.
On the news tip, there is a show that I shot a promo for that DirecTV was doing, and I got a chance to hang out inside their like editing suite. It's called My Fighting Season.
Okay.
And it was an incredible concept. They basically, so soldiers that have gone out to these wars, I think this one was in Afghanistan, without being prompted, sometimes by their commanders they do, will have GoPros on them and they'll put them on their helmet, and not for any, they don't like plan to go home and go on iMovie and like make a thing. They just do it. It's just like part of what gets them through the day. And so a lot of these soldiers had racked up just terabytes of footage. And, the producer for the show hit them up and was like, hey, cause I think he did a show called Their Fighting Season where he went out with like their cameras and followed them with like their crew. And this time he's like, I want to get the view of like this soldier. And they had these GoPros on. And
it was called The Fighting Season.
Yeah, the Fighting Season. That is correct.
And it's fucking amazing.
It's insane. And so what they did was like sometimes there were 3 soldiers on the same mission that were doing different things. So like the helicopter pilot and then like the soldier who was like hopping in. And so long story short, like if you've already got content like that actually exists where soldiers are running through and you're getting a real, like I was in those suites. They're not like adding like bullet flares and shit. Like they color that shit at best. And I can't even imagine how immersive the content's going to be when I'm sitting there, like actually looking around, like not letting the soldier guide me with his expertise of where to be, and me just sitting there like so vulnerable and like green in this situation, being like, I don't even know where this fucking bullet is coming from.
Oh my God.
It's
That's
insane.
intense.
Yeah. So from the news standpoint, 110%.
I mean, that at the same time though, the consuming process almost turns more into theater, because you have to, it's not the same as like sitting down at your computer and
it's active.
Distracting yourself from your email. Yeah. Because you're usually, the way you're consuming news is like that, or on Twitter or whatever it is. And even watching a movie or watching a TV show is more sitting there and watching what someone has produced for you to guide you along a path of enjoyment. VR is going to be much more of a immersive theater kind of experience where you'll have to consume this news content at like news events or something.
Yeah,
it's like you
like
show
the
up,
DNC or the whatever. And
you show up and Discovery has a booth and National Geographic has a booth, and they're like, you need to see what's happening in Rwanda right now.
Right.
And you put it on and you leave and you're at like some fucking summit of news of what's happening in the world because you want to be an educated person. We should get on that. Let's make a news summit.
Let's do it. We're coming up with ideas here for new businesses. I have to leave. I can't start anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So have any of the YouTubers that you work with hit you up about VR?
I think it's on everyone's mind. But
Joe, every single day. I'm sure.
Well, actually, it's funny because in our house, I'm pushing him to it more than he's talking about it. I'm like, oh my, like a Mr. Guitar Man VR situation would be so unbelievable. I think he's, he and a lot of people are sort of cautiously watching it. Like, is this a 3D kind of thing where it's not really going to impact what we're doing? I think it's very hyped right now. There's a lot of money getting poured into the space, into people figuring it out. And of course, there'll be like a couple clear winners. But I do think, that it's going to transform how we consume certain kinds of media. And I just think it's not a gimmick, you know, and then obviously AR with all this Pokemon Go stuff is here, and even Snapchat, you know, is really those filters are AR.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that to kind of theorize what that means. I think it is definitely going to manifest more as games and a little gimmicky.
Yeah. Well, brands
VR.
took the fuck off with the AR of Snapchat. That was
Holy
like
shit.
instant. It was instant, right? As soon as they figured it out, it was the most valuable thing a brand could put together. I have 4 sisters, so I get Snapchats every day of like, look, I'm a fucking bee. Look, I'm this, you know, whatever. It's something new that's paid for every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. You know, those guys really, really figured something out.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about Snapchat for the longest time. Like, I was kind of like, all right, like, can we stop lying to each other and just recognize this is a sexting platform? Like, that's what this is.
I know, I was like horrified when my co-founder downloaded it. I'm like, does your wife know that you're on Snapchat?
Yeah.
It's not a fucking Tinder.
I swear that's what I like.
No, I thought I was
in my head.
Totally
I was like, quit
with
playing.
you.
I'm like, quit playing. Like, you all know what this shit
This
is.
is 90% dick pics. Let's be honest.
Yeah, this is like some Mission Impossible. This message will self-destruct. Like, and I'll know if you screenshotted this shit. Like, sexting platform. And then I saw the AR filters, and I was like, you won.
Yeah.
Like, you won. Because I'll tell you what, like, whenever I hang out with my little nieces, like, half of the time we hang out together, it's just like scrolling through the different AR filters, like being bunnies together or like being doggies together.
Even my
and it's
2-year-old loves it.
Yeah, they love it, man. It's like, and they're getting acclimated to this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? For us, we're like, this is amazing. Like, we're like, back in my day, I had to put on real doggy ears to like be a doggy. And like now all of a sudden, I'm like scrolling through this goddamn phone with my finger, and I'm like, I'm an alien, I'm a dog. Like, now I'm crying Michael Jordan because I downloaded the picture onto my phone, and I can just superimpose someone's face onto mine.
That's the best part.
And I'm like,
do you guys follow Will Sasso on Snapchat, where he does a different Arnold Schwarzenegger impression every day?
No.
He's just like, I'm Arnold, I'm in the Arctic, and it's every single day it's a new one. He's the best. Follow Will Sasso on Snapchat.
Yeah, but it's pretty incredible.
And then Instagram is copying them now.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but so what about 360 video though? Because the live streaming thing's taking the fuck off.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what you're advising talent on for live streaming, because a lot of people want that. And
Well,
then 360 live streaming, as that starts to happen. That's one thing we want to do in this room, which is put a 360 camera in here so that people can use it if they want to or not, but we're going to cover all of the walls with art. And the technology already today is capable of people being able to click on every single piece that they see and go to a purchase link, and we can have it play a sponsor's ad when they look directly up, and there's a sponsor's logo on the ceiling. If you know anybody that's interested in that, let us know. And it will just only play when they look up, so it doesn't bother our users. But what are you kind of advising talent, seeing this new wave that's just crashing over all of social media? Facebook, Twitter's doing it soon. What?
I mean, I think with the 360 thing, it's definitely like only if it makes sense for the format, or for the content that you're wanting to make. And I think but for live, especially with our demographic, like Facebook Live is huge. We have talent who are doing like live cooking tutorials, doing live Q&As.
Is it going to kill Periscope?
I think it already did.
Yeah. It had a good run.
People tried.
I did Periscope once, and that was it.
I tried it a couple times, couldn't get into it.
No, I couldn't either. I think it's but you know, I think it's funny because back when you and I started, there was like Ustream, and we got pitched all of these live platforms constantly, and no one figured it out until Facebook was just like, move over. I got this.
Ustream did well for me. I would get a commission from YouTube. I would sit there and paint the shoes, and my client could sit there and watch me paint them, and then other people could watch them too. And I made a lot of sales on Ustream while I was just painting all the time, and then I would put out the well-produced video, at the end of the week.
I bet you could do well on Facebook Live.
Absolutely. I would probably do that instead.
Yeah.
But you had a different, product.
Right.
But I think a lot of these folks, their product is themselves. So it's
but a lot of YouTubers, they're musicians or comedians or whatever,
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think, the brand manager at Lipton's going to be on your Ustream, live chatting you in that very moment. And if they're going to see, and if they're there to watch your content, they could have watched your content not live at any time. Chances are they probably watching it while it's not live.
True.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so we have our eye on it, especially Facebook Live. So that's really where we're at.
Do you have anything you're planning, or just keeping an eye on it for now, like VR?
Yeah, we're just kind of, we do it opportunistically. Like we went live at the conference today on Facebook.
Yeah, that's a good use for that, for sure.
So aside from all of these new technologies, is there anything, and obviously this channel that you've been, bringing up and I think doing a great job at, do you have anything forward facing that you're excited about, you want to talk about, that, is on your mind, or something you want to develop?
Oh, I'm not giving my secrets away.
Tell us what you can.
I think nothing major. I would just say that, we're constantly trying to be on the bleeding edge of things, which is so cliche. Don't hate me for saying it.
No.
But it is, you have to constantly be on top of this stuff, and it changes every week. And it's so fun when you can be sort of the first in and figure something out and kind of hit that sweet spot and hit that moment. And that's really like the space that I personally thrive in, and why I love what I'm building right now with Awestruck. And so I'm now like just beyond obsessed with, and this was in the article that we were talking about, this idea of the identity feed, where, as you can find anything for anybody on the internet, people with sort of specific, and this is not a new concept, but people with sort of specific, communities that they're looking to join, whether it's a mom or somebody who's passionate about cooking or someone who's passionate about video games, to create like a forward-facing brand where they can go and consume that content. And that's what we're doing at Awestruck, and I love that.
And that's the article you sent me was describing the different kinds of feed. It was scale, identity, and one other one, which scale feed is like a Netflix. We'll share this article.
Yeah.
Warning, it's extremely difficult to get through because not all of us are as smart as Sarah.
Well, I
took
take
so
notes.
many fucking notes on that thing. But
it's a good one if you can slog through it.
And if not, just skip down to the identity feed part, because it hits home really hard with millennials, and it's something that Think Tank Gallery aspires to, because we're starting a podcast, but we're a gallery.
Right.
So for us, it's like, and I come from the streetwear world, in sneakers at least, and it's something that they all got a long time ago, which was we're a lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
And like you said, Red Bull, everyone wants to be Red Bull.
Yeah.
But on a smaller scale, everyone wants to be the Hundreds. Everyone wants to be Diamond Supply Company. They want to be these brands that everyone wants to be Ed Hardy. They want to be.
What?
Oh my God, dude! We stop talking about Snooki,
we will violently disagree with
Oh my God!
Everyone wants to be satirical, like I just was, and you
drink the screen cleaning fluid.
Sarcastic.
And just end it right now.
But they want to be, the Hundreds. It produces clothing, but they also produce original content and photo books and promote artists and
it's a movement.
Commission artists.
And people want to be part of that.
Right? They create a movement. They had billboards that said "New York hates the Hundreds," and they put them up in New York. Like they, I think I'm right about that. It might have been in LA, but in any case, so there's these identity feeds now that people are creating that hits home hard with millennials. And you're aiming at millennial moms now, and I think we're going to see a lot of brands doing something similar to that, and what Awesomeness is doing.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Guys, I'm about to pass out from this heat.
Well, that's perfect, because I have one last question for you, and it involves you to kind of take all of the information that you've learned and all the mistakes that you've made and the successes you've experienced and distill it into some advice. If you were looking at your 20-year-old self and could deliver, or someone who's 20 years old who reminds you of yourself, and you could give them some advice that would help them further their career, what would that be?
Look at your weaknesses and sit with them and learn them backwards and forwards, and then own them and turn them into strengths. Because I learned the very, very hard way, and making a lot of mistakes of beating myself up for my weaknesses and shoving them down and trying to hide them in a personality that I thought was appropriate for what I was doing. And your essence of who you are will always come to the surface. So if you can own those weaknesses, you're going to turn them into strengths, and that you didn't even know you had. And you'll have superpowers then.
Beautiful.
And have ownership. So much fun, because your 20s are amazing, but I love being 30. It is the best thing ever. So don't like freak out. My 30s so far have been I've just been comfortable with myself. I've settled down. My anxieties have chilled out. You're sort of like, you can start helping people who are younger than you. It's awesome.
Cool.
That's good.
I have a year and a day to look forward to that.
That's
it's
right.
so good, Jacob. You're going to love it.
I'm sure
it's
I
so
will.
good.
Every year older I get, I like myself more.
Exactly. That's it. That's perfect.
Yep.
So where can people find you?
Twitter and Instagram are at Sarah with an H. Don't spell it wrong. _ Penna with 2 N's.
Okay.
Awesome.
And
And-
Snapchat, you have a pretty damn cute Snapchat.
Oh, my Snapchat's super cute. So if you want to see a lot of babies, if you don't get enough on my Instagram, my Snapchat is Mrs. Penna, MRSPENNA.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys. This was epic. I really, really enjoyed being here and having this conversation.
We
Let's go
enjoyed
jump in
having
the
you. You were
pool.
awesome. Yeah, we're going to jump in the pool. Thanks, guys.
Oh my God. I'm taking my shirt off.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
That's the best ending.
So that was our podcast with Sarah Penna. You can follow her on Instagram and Twitter, like she said, at Sarah with an H _ Penna, PENNA. On Snapchat, she's Mrs. Penna, MRSPENNA. And she's a blast to follow. You're going to learn a lot from her. So please do that. Expect another podcast a week from today, hopefully, and a couple more coming out soon. And then, like I said, we will have a live podcast coming out here pretty soon, so expect some news on that. And that's it. I'm leaving for the desert for a week. Bye, y'all.